Friends, I think we figured it out.
Third time's a charm?
I think we got it.
All right.
Let me know if you can hear us in the chat. Look, okay, a new studio comes with a lot of serious consequences for setup, all right? We very abruptly had to leave because we were under threat of being swatted because apparently, I'm just kidding, that's not real, but...
there it is.
There we go.
Hey, Ethan.
Okay,
Nice.
okay. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining us here for the one and only presidential debate.
Can I record while we're on air?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So, look, you might be noticing that we're in a different space. We've gone into hiding with everyone being banned. We've decided we're going to go underground for a little while. We're going to stay low, and we're going to keep ourselves off the radar while we do a live stream. So if we abruptly go off the air today, it's definitely not a technical glitch. It's the fact that we've been banned by the powers that be. Kamala Harris herself has pushed the nuke button on our YouTube account, and that's that. Kyle, what are you looking forward to hearing from these fine candidates this evening?
Honestly, this is like my Super Bowl. So I'm looking forward to some quippy dunks from Trump. I'm looking forward to "I'm speaking, sir" from Kamala.
I don't think you're going to get that one because the mics
are muted, and which is interesting about this
Kind
dynamic.
of like ours.
Kind of like ours. Nobody wants to hear us. Well, that's the interesting thing here is apparently, at least what I've heard, what the rumors are, is that the Kamala team was the one pushing for unmuted mics because they wanted to strategically kind of script out a viral moment or a few viral moments, and her not having the ability to interrupt Trump when he is saying big bad lies, evil orange man, and she can jump in like the sassy black woman that she is. She's just like, no, sir. That's kind of what they were looking for, but apparently they're not going to have that.
Well, but that's odd to me because you would think ABC being very friendly to the DNC, the Democratic Party.
I'm hearing that we're quiet.
We're quiet. Okay, thank you guys so much for the feedback. We're going to figure this out for you. I'm just going to pump these up just a little bit. And let me know in the chat how all of that sounds. And if not, we're going to just crank it a little bit more. All right. It's weird to me, though, that ABC, being so friendly to the Kamala camp, wouldn't give her rules that she might find favorable. Do you think that's because they might think, Trump would back out of the debate, or it would be looking like it's too favorable? What do you guys think? And is anybody listening to me, or are you guys just absorbed into the chat?
No, Being Libertarian just retweeted us.
All right.
So we now have hopefully a larger audience.
Love those guys.
Pitch to. I don't know about the favorability of the rules. I mean, Kamala's cackling could actually be a downside if she does that too much, right? So if the mic's being muted, might decrease the cackling.
I mean, yeah, but I think the cackling is going to happen regardless. I mean, you have to imagine within her own statements, her own awkwardness and lack of, real depth is going to come through, don't you think?
I don't know. Are we going to get speech Kamala or interview Kamala? It seems like we're going to get interview Kamala, right? Because it's a lot closer to interview of sorts. But
fairly scripted, yeah.
It's going to be really scripted, like a speech.
She's apparently been in the lab working on this debate for a week. And they brought in like Hollywood actors and preppers and things.
Please let it be Shane Gillis. She had to practice.
Shane Gillis. He's just impersonating Trump the whole time.
That is amazing. All right. I want to know in the chat what you guys are doing for debate drinking games. What is going to be said that is going to be your trigger to have a drink of whatever it is you're enjoying this evening? For us, it might be a ranch water or a nice Pilsner. Maybe a glass of whiskey as we get deeper into this
How long is it supposed to go? Is it 2 hours?
This is 90 minutes.
It's 90
minutes. Yeah, we have 90
minutes,
which makes a total of 107 minutes that the American public will get to hear from Kamala Harris before she is
not even. It's not like she's going to be talking the entire time.
Guys.
You're right.
Ballots go out in like 20 days in some states.
That's wild to me.
Yeah, 20, 30 days.
That's wild. So some people will really only get this and the one interview that she did before they have to decide if they're going to vote for her or not.
Yeah. Assumably, she'll do one more interview before.
I don't think we can assume
October,
that.
But
can we assume that?
I don't know if that's a good assumption. It'll depend on the polling, probably. It seems like their strategy is, okay, she's going to do the one thing she's obligated to do, which is the debate, and also a softball interview with CNN?
Dana Bash, it was
CNN?
Dana Bash.
Sounds right.
And then they'll think about maybe another softball interview. Maybe they got to like test the waters a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think they're just kind of at the point of, it's like, okay, big evil Trump will keep being big evil Trump. And then we got some lady over here. And that's kind of what they're running on.
Absolutely.
It's just some lady.
Just some lady.
Who has questionable policy decisions. Maybe she has an agenda, sorta, kinda price controls.
Actually, that's interesting. I heard that they rolled out their full policy page on their website like at midnight the other night, like in the middle of the night. So it would not have any fanfare. And I haven't looked it up yet. Have you guys looked into it at all?
No. Let's
I think we should pull it up and see what Kamala Harris is all about. In the meantime, I would like to wish our friend, supporter of the show, regular listener, Emily, a very happy birthday tomorrow.
Oh, hey.
Emily, big 4-0, big milestone. We're so happy for you. Also, just came into possession of a trailer park in West Virginia. So congratulations on this new business venture you're embarking
just doxing everything about it.
Yeah. Way to
So
go, Emily.
we do have a couple comments. So Adam wants to know the over/under on David ranting into the microphone mid-debate.
Well, I think that's 100% guaranteed.
Do we got the music queued up for that?
No, I had to give up the stream deck so my computer can be over there.
Oh, shucks.
Bennett, I'm not actually sure your computer needs to be over
That's
there.
what I'm wondering, but I didn't want to fuck anything up. So.
Well, you can move it. Now's the time to do it, dude.
Yeah, go ahead and move it back.
That's
And
all
if
right.
anything breaks, Adam will let us know in the chat.
We're bootstrapping this thing. We got how many people we got in the chat right now? 14 people watching. Let's go.
Let's go, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
So
where are we?
Meso says drink every time someone says immigrant.
Oh, okay.
Oh
pretty
man,
good
that's gonna be a rough.
Do we
night.
include migrant as well? Because I feel like those can kind of
Yeah,
work in
she's not
tandem.
going to say immigrant. She's gonna
Does
say-
Trump mention the cats?
See,
That's
okay.
That's a winning issue, man. You want to get the average, like
Cat lady?
Yeah, well, not just cat lady, just like the middle America, like
Cat
stay-at-home
gentleman.
mom. Okay, so every election is determined. The biggest swing demographic is your middle-aged woman, right? How many middle-aged women do you know have cats?
Probably most of them.
So hey, I think it's a winning issue. He needs to lean into the cat.
So
situation.
Kamala does appear to have policy stuff on here. One of the big policies highlighted in red is Trump's Project 2025 agenda.
Wow, I
here.
can't believe she's endorsing it. That's amazing.
That's crazy. she endorses it so much they even highlight it.
Wow, this is how you know they're really hanging their hat on their own policy prescriptions and not just what Trump does.
Not Trump.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at one of these.
I don't know if you can switch to it, Bennett.
I can.
Is it switched? I
Yep.
don't know.
Oh, wait, let's read that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Vice President Harris and Governor Walz believe that working families deserve a break. That's why under their plan, more than 100 million working and middle-class Americans will get a tax cut. They will do this by restoring 2 tax cuts designed to help middle-class and working Americans, the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. Restoring, are these not a thing right now?
Is this the stream deck?
Yes, I think. Guys, if we just disappeared.
Bennett just unplugged something and it terrified me.
Bennett is doing some live reconfiguration here.
Yeah, it's still up right now.
Okay, so let's see. Unlike Donald Trump, Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are committed to ensuring no one earning less than $400,000 a year will pay more in taxes. Is Trump not on board with tax cuts here? Is that what they're kind of trying to allude to?
Well, I don't know if this is an anti-Trump thing. This is just trying to cultivate a middle America.
Well, half of
know.
her policies are Trump policies. So
Yeah, I think she does
that has
do that.
been kind
That's
of
fair.
the
What's the
idea.
rent? Make rent more affordable. This is the price.
This is
price fixing.
Probably
Price controls?
some sort of price fiction.
Let's see.
Has always stood up to deliver $20 billion for middle-class families who faced foreclosure and helped pass a
Oh no,
homeowner
this is
bill
the
of
20.
rights.
It's the third paragraph. 25,000 to help home payments. The problem with that is whenever you subsidize consumption, it increases price.
Right.
Right. So you subsidize consumption of college, increases the price of
Right,
tuition.
because demand goes up, supply stays the same. Although in the second paragraph up here, if you roll back up, she does say she has rolled out a comprehensive plan to build 3 million more rental units and homes that are affordable to end the national housing supply crisis in her first term.
How does it? How?
Great question.
Well-
Not a lot of detail
well,
there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna build a lot of. I was just gonna be out there with a hammer, just like,
Guys,
here we go.
Guys, these are campaigns. We don't talk about the how.
We don't talk about details yet. You got to elect me to know what I'm for. That's the plan.
You
right?
elect me, and then I'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, and then we got more price fixing with bring bad actors. That's the price gouging stuff.
Yep, strengthening Social Security and Medicare, supporting American innovation and workers.
I mean, this is all you're ever going to get on,
Yeah.
on websites,
Good
but-
platitudes, though.
But it
wait,
is
wait,
interesting
we
that they
got
have
the Pro
stuff.
Act, all right, including the Pro Act. You guys know what the Pro Act
Oh,
is?
yeah. That was our first project together, David, was a video about the PRO Act.
Yeah.
How terrible it is. David, do you want to describe what the PRO Act is?
Oh man, I'm trying to remember.
You can probably cut back to us.
You don't need to tell Bennett what to do.
Yeah,
Just-
leave me alone.
He's got it dialed.
He's
man.
got it.
He's got it
Except
figured
I
out.
can't figure out the stream deck.
Look,
I
we're-
figured he was
yes.
distracted.
Yeah, this is the card check and all that kind of stuff. Basically, it's a bunch of stuff to make it easier to unionize.
yes.
Yeah.
And to make it harder for individuals who aren't unionized to get jobs, right?
Right.
Correct. Okay. It's all coming back to me
What's
now.
the take on bad actors and bring down costs? This must be the
Crackdown on anti-competitive practices that let big corporations jack up prices and undermine the competition
Oh,
that
am I
allows all
muted? Is
businesses
Stream
to
Deck
thrive.
muted on the iPad?
Yes,
that
it
why?
is. Yes, it is.
Ah,
Let me see.
get it
Maybe
going.
it's not. Let me see. Hit something.
give me a John Cena.
No, it's actually not muted, and so it's not coming through. Fuck. Interesting. Well, you'll have to troubleshoot that while we continue
This is
to
bullshit.
prepare for this debate. Let's go back to the debate window. Make sure we're getting close. I know we're within probably 10 minutes or so.
I'm got multiple screens here.
And it's gone.
There we are. Okay, we're getting close here. 13 minutes until the debate, everybody. What is the number one issue in the chat? What is the number one issue that you are hoping to hear addressed, and what is it that you want to be said about that thing?
We have 21 watching right now.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, here we go.
We love
We're
every
doing
single
the
one
thing.
of you.
I really enjoyed the last live stream that we did when it was just me and Joe. It was when we lost the
Ouch.
bald guy.
Ouch.
Look, we had a great time.
just
Okay.
enjoyed
we
the
had a good
intimacy,
time.
if
We had
you
a
will.
good time. But it's fun. It's like a different dynamic. It's interesting watching the chat go by. You get kind of like, ooh, like you understand why live streamers do it. You're just like, there's just so much dopamine feedback that comes in from the chat.
Yes.
It's
So
a whole totally different thing.
my buddy Super Shoe here says we have to finish our drink if she says I'm speaking, which I mean that's kind of that's a tall order, I will say, because we got tall drinks over here. But
Super Shoe is telling us to test the audio from the debate.
yeah, okay. Here.
Test that. That's a
All right.
good point.
Honestly,
That's a
fair,
good point.
fair.
Thanks, buddy. All right, here we go.
Let's try it.
Are you muted?
I don't think so.
ABC, some extra advertising.
Oh yeah.
Here you go, guys.
It should be working.
What is that?
Well,
Just pulled up
It's
a
not.
shit
Well, it doesn't seem to be. So good call
Hey,
from Super
It was
Shoe.
just working like 5
It
minutes
know.
was
ago.
working earlier.
Why don't you check your computer and make sure that you got your output right? Because remember, you got unplugged.
Oh, I did get
I'm
unplugged.
gonna mute
That's
you.
true.
All right. Hey, we're just doing this live technical style. You guys, most shows
Super
have
Shoe,
like
thank you.
big crews and stuff. We're just running this thing, just the four of us. That's all we got, is us and you guys.
Just us.
So we appreciate you for keeping us on our toes here, guys.
We got posts from Underground. Regardless of the drinking game you play, Kamala will drink more after the debate. Nice, dude.
America's wine mom, doing her job.
I am not on the Sound Blaster. Is this supposed to go into microphone or is it supposed to go into headphones?
Headphones.
Just headphones, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going out. Yep. You're getting signal now.
I am getting
had
signal?
Yeah, I had you
Oh,
muted.
but you put me down. Okay, perfect.
Had you muted,
we
and we're
go.
gonna just roll you up.
Yes,
Okay.
we got it.
All right, well, let's wait for the chat to
Yeah.
confirm that they hear it.
We're hearing it in headphones, so they should be.
I've got it low, guys. Don't worry. I'll turn it up when it's time, but I've got it low for now so we don't get bombarded with Hulu ads here.
Torin says, I want to hear about actual policies, not just insults about the other person or what the other person has done wrong.
Very fair.
Yeah. Good luck, brother.
I'm down. I'm down.
I'm here for theater.
All right.
She
I'm
might be
muting
an
that.
Indian. She might be black. We'll see
I
what
don't
he
know.
says.
I know she was one
knows.
thing and then she was the other, but who knows?
All right, Super Shoe says he hears it.
Okay,
All
that's
right.
good.
We got it.
We got it. We
Yeah.
got it, everybody. All right. Just some dudes on a couch. Don't make it weird, Adam. Jeez.
3 dudes,
Not like
2
that.
couches.
Three dudes. One
I'm not on a
couch.
couch, actually. I have my own chair.
Which is made from a sheep.
This is made from a sheep. I'm calling it Fuzzy Wuzzy Was a Chair. As you can tell, if you can tell on camera, the arms are very, very plush. Very plush.
I'm with you, Adam. I don't want to hear policies because we're beyond that. Although I think it is one of these things, and this is where the muted mic probably comes into Trump's favor. Is much like the Biden debate, a lot of the strategy is actually let them talk. Although she's had a week to script everything, and who knows if she's gotten questions ahead of time or what. There could be a situation that's happened in the past, right? But I think some of it is letting her talk is actually probably a good strategy, depending on how well prepped she is. She
Yeah.
did have a week. So.
Well, and this is kind of my question: is like it was shown that the Biden debate rules, the primary debate, were brought forward by the Biden camp, ostensibly to help Biden. but they actually did end up hurting him because it would have been better if Trump had interrupted him during some of his rambling moments. He got to go on his own and make himself look pretty bad. So you would think that the Kamala camp would have seen that, knowing that their candidate is maybe not super good unscripted, and said, hey, maybe we should actually let there be some dialogue. That way she can interject. That way they can have a bit of banter and she can get some of those viral moments. Is this some sort of backhanded way to sort of diminish Kamala? I mean, what's going on with these rules?
It could be very possible that the Trump camp actually wants these rules because, okay, so the same reasons why it was good for Trump to not interrupt Biden because it makes Trump not look like a bullying an old man. Now it'll make it look like he's not bullying a woman.
Right.
Which
That's
is
fair.
important. The top demographic that you need to win.
Yeah, because Trump was just looking like a misogynist last night. There's going to be that type of narrative.
Right. So if he interrupts her less, if it's,
So what does
if he
Trump...
can control his face and he's not going like, oh, when she says stuff, then it'll
Which he
look,
probably will. I mean,
Yeah,
let's be
he's
honest.
going to have the little slide, those eye rolls he does, right?
Yeah. But
So
those could actually work. They are funny. Yeah.
One of
Oh,
the
yeah.
best things that Trump, one of the best lines from Trump in the Biden debate was, I don't know what he said. I don't think he knows what he said. And it was one of those things where everybody...
That was the dagger.
That was the dagger. That was the nail in the coffin, I thought, where I think everybody's just like, yeah, nobody knows what he said.
Okay, so what does Trump need to say in order to win that all-important demographic, David?
That he is not pro-life, that he doesn't support a national pro-choice ban or pro-life ban.
Abortion ban?
Yeah, abortion
specifically?
ban.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he needs to say he's not pro-life?
Yeah.
Do you see that happening?
Well, that's
Or
dangerous for his
continue his
base, but
moderate
it's key
position.
for the swing vote.
Yeah,
Interesting.
continuing
In
the
the States
moderate position that he has on it is very beneficial to winning over the middle America crowd. It is one of those things where we're seeing that right now with a lot of the heavy conservative bases is starting to be in that let's withhold our votes from Trump until he adopts a more pro-life stance. That is a thing that's happening in conservative internet space. Oh, look, it's Chris Christie.
I couldn't help but notice.
I've been laughing at just like the
Did he endorse
ridiculous
Kamala?
stage B-roll.
Let's go ahead and hear what Chris
Has
Christie
he
has to say.
endorsed Kamala? That's one that I would imagine because Dick Cheney just
You
endorsed
helped prepare
Kamala.
him for those 2016 debates
Let's hear
against
this.
Hillary Clinton. He told you that he had respect for Hillary Clinton, that Hillary Clinton was smart as you were preparing. What about Kamala Harris? We hear not the same.
Well, certainly he's not saying that publicly in any way. And I can tell you that in 2016, he would regularly say during the many debate prep sessions that we had with him that Hillary Clinton was smart, that she was a good debater, that she was not to be taken lightly. And I don't think there was ever a moment in 2016 where he took her lightly. I do think he took Joe Biden lightly in 2020. And clearly during the prep sessions that I had with him, it was very, very difficult to get him to focus on what Joe Biden might or might not do in that first debate. And I think his performance in part reflected that. So the question's going to be, is what he's saying publicly what he really believes? We know that often with Donald Trump, that's performance. But I will tell you that in his 2016 prep, he was serious about getting ready for Hillary Clinton. In his 2020 debate prep, he was completely unserious about getting ready for Joe Biden. I think performances in both those debates reflected that approach.
All
All
right.
right, Chris Christie, you'll be watching
How much
with
did he
us.
just spit on the floor?
Probably actually, I'm not sure. Could have missed his stomach. Oh, God, I know. That was bad. Quick pivot. Liam says the podcast looks incredible. Thank you, Liam. Liam McCullum in the chat. He is the newest partner from Human Reaction with us, often appearing on the podcast. He has his own show. Make sure you go follow that as well on YouTube, the Liam McCullum Show. Liam, glad to have you here, buddy. Hope you stick around. We got Lava Lamp in the chat, calling out Chris Krispy Kreme.
Lava Lamp, a recent member, recent YouTube member.
Thanks for joining us, man.
It's unfortunate that our Substack members don't get like the nice YouTube logos and stuff like that. Like the people that are YouTube members, it pops them up in the chat.
That's true.
Like Liam and Lava Lamp
And we appreciate you. Posts from the underground as well. We thank you guys for supporting the show.
Oh, speaking of YouTube members, we were actually just chatting as we were getting all this stuff ready. We're chatting about your guys' merch drop. All of our nuclear reactors and all one of the benefits is that we're going to have a special merch drop for everybody. And we've started talking about designs for that, and we're looking towards that now.
We're very excited. And if you want to be a part of that merch drop and get a piece of Human Reaction apparel, quality crafted, like
Unique.
David.
Yeah, it'll be one time only, limited edition, only for our supporting members.
Right. If you want to be a part of that, humanreactionpod.com, or if you're on YouTube, which you are right now, obviously, you can just go to membership or to join, and then you can jump in and become a nuclear reactor and get a sweet piece of unique custom Human Reaction apparel, sort of like what David's wearing with his very cool golf polo here. I can tell you, I've worn it on the golf course. It is
great.
Cool and refreshing.
Oh, it's so stretchy.
Just like
I love this
Powerade
shirt.
Blue.
Yeah, and if you're, and also noting, this is only for the people at the highest tier. So
That's
if you're
right.
at one of the lower tiers, you got to upgrade to the highest tier.
Yeah.
But you're all high tier in our book.
Hit the money symbol below the chat.
There you go. Of course, you
Howdy,
can
Zach,
you
by
can
the way.
support the live stream by putting in a super chat. We do accept super chats, so you want to highlight it, we can do that, and we'll read that run right away. Although we're reading everything from it.
Oh, Lee Deming's here in the chat.
Lee Deming, hey,
He got
Howdy,
he
sir.
got some shout outs on the podcast from Liam back several episodes ago.
That's right. And thank you so much for posing that question to Tim Sheehy about Defend the Guard and getting him to offer that tremendous endorsement. That was a really cool moment. We were really glad to see that happen. So thank you so much.
Really
Zach
awesome.
McCory in here as well. Howdy, Zach. Thanks for joining us. We're just like 3 minutes out here, guys. We're getting close. So before we get too much closer, I guess we'll just say our plan this evening is to try to listen to the debate in as much of its entirety as possible without interruption. Of course, no one can contain the force that is David Rand, so if he has to interject, it will happen. But we're going to do our best to moderate the audio level so it's not just a cacophony of fury.
Yeah,
from
so if
David.
audio problems go wrong, it's Joe's fault.
Completely my fault.
If visuals go wrong, it's Bennett's fault. Dave and I have nothing to do with any of it.
No.
We're just the talent.
Oh, wow. Prima donnas here, you guys. You see what we have to deal with. Gosh.
Oh man,
I
Yep.
too am here for the memes.
We are all here for the
And
memes.
the best meme of this election cycle so far is the cat memes.
Oh,
And
God.
I am
wow.
waiting for it.
what a viral moment.
Yeah.
Oh, Zach is saying we have to mute Dave's mic.
Yes.
Oh hey now.
Good call. If you super chat us, we will mute Dave's mic.
What's the minimum super chat to mute my mic? That's the question.
$1.
$1.
I'm
It's,
kidding.
it's
I'm
a
kidding.
dollar.
Wow.
It's $1 per minute. All right. We'll mute him for 60 seconds, and then we'll bring him back. All right.
Thanks, Kendall. We're at our special bunker. We didn't want to get canceled, so we moved the location of live stream to a underground bunker somewhere in the great state of Montana.
It's one of those really bougie bunkers. Actually, Mark Zuckerberg designed this one, and but it didn't quite fit his spec, so he actually gave it to us because we're pretty tight.
Thanks, Zuck.
Thanks, Zuck. Appreciate you, buddy.
Zuck's really coming around lately. He's supporting us. No,
He's going to UFC
he's
fights.
going to UFC fights.
He says he
gave us his bunker.
He's not funding, Democrats this election cycle. So
I know
hey.
he still hasn't boosted us on Facebook, but
Well,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. I still don't have my account back, but fingers crossed. Working on it.
we got a
We're gonna
letter.
have it.
We got a letter into the commish about that. All right, we're 60 seconds out here, guys. We're getting super close to this number one and only
It actually-
presidential debate.
It's actually cool to see our growth. Like we have 27 people in here right now. 31 actually. It just hit 31.
Oh my gosh, this might be an all-time high.
Also,
For
if you,
live streams, yeah.
If you want to get this on the algorithm on other people's pages, on the bottom right hand, you have those little hearts and the ways to react. Punch those things in. You see something you like, we say something you like, make sure to hit a heart, a laugh, whatever. That is on the algorithm. It shows engagement, and that's what makes it more likely someone who has similar YouTube proclivities that you do will see this. So please do that. Those who are watching,
That's
help
right.
us out, spread the word.
And if you know your friends are watching the debate, they may as well be watching it with us. So bring them on in.
You just be like, yo, I know some dorks who are watching it. They make good points sometimes, I guess.
All right,
Like,
friends,
Maybe.
we are closing in.
Seems
10
like
seconds
14.
out.
Seems
So
like they're
Oh,
preparing
man.
here.
we're going to dial in on this debate here.
Just 10 seconds away, and we will be back with our post-game show.
10 seconds till commercial break.
Right now.
Fake
They're
out.
really hyping up.
Wait,
they're really
wait,
hyping up the Pfizer ad coming in.
Yeah, which pharma company are we going to see
nope.
right now?
Here in a Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election. Their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
Don't just like that stream. Smash that like button, you guys. I need you to help us get the word out.
Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face. Historic.
Is it live enough for everybody or loud enough?
The ABC News presidential debate.
I'm actually not sure who are the moderators.
David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
There you go.
I don't know them.
This guy's like the main, their main
Thank you for joining
anchor.
us for tonight's ABC News
I don't know who
presidential
she is.
debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes
check out
allowed.
that B-roll.
There is no audience here tonight in this hall in the National
Wow,
Constitution
look at that
Center.
podium.
This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates
Intimate
who have never
setting.
met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening.
He chooses
Vice
to
President
receive.
Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Wow, it's really awkward without a crowd. It's really awkward.
Oh,
How's the fit?
Oh, he goes straight for the podium.
Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Good sport. Good sport. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
Joe,
So let's get started.
How's the fit?
I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say
I like
is their
the-
number one issue, and that is the economy
handkerchief.
and the cost of living in this
is
country.
that a handkerchief?
I don't
Vice
know.
President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing.
Didn't answer the question, Drake.
We know that we have a shortage of
It's gonna be a
homes
long
and
night
housing.
then.
Yeah.
And the cost of housing is too expensive
That's
for
just good
far too many
debate
people.
strategy.
We
Answer the
know
question
that young
you want to be
families need
asked,
support
not the one you're asked.
True.
to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children.
A crib costs $6,000.
My passion,
Look, inflation,
one of them is
inflation,
small
okay?
businesses. I was actually,
Kendall
my
makes a
mother
point.
raised
Trump's
my
hair
sister
is
and me,
different.
Oh,
but
yeah.
there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small
You know, I
business
thought Chris
owner.
Christie's
I
hair
love
looked
our
weird,
small
too,
businesses.
earlier.
My plan is
a
to give a
colorization thing?
$50,000 tax deduction
Shitty
to
TV.
start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before,
Jesus, how long is
which
this
is to
question
provide
answer?
a tax cut for billionaires
minutes.
and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
And to be clear, Biden kept all of Trump's
The
tariffs.
tariff will be substantial in
almost all.
some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions, and asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon.
Say the cats.
And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado.
Ooh, that's a
they
good
are
one.
taking over the towns. They're taking
Chicago?
over buildings. They're going in violently.
Yeah,
These are the
Springfield,
people
that's where the cats are
that
getting
Xi
eaten.
Oh,
and
yeah. He didn't say
Biden
the cats, though.
Let
I'm
into
saying,
our
like,
country.
it'll happen.
And they're
He's waiting for his
destroying our
zinger on it.
country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would
So
like
shut
to let
up.
Vice
A
President
way to
Harris
think of
respond
tariffs
on the
is
economy.
a consumption tax. It's
Well,
actually
I
a
would
fair
love
way to think of tariffs. It's a consumption
Let's
tax on
talk
foreign
about
goods.
what Donald Trump
That
left
said,
us. Donald Trump left
the Biden-
us
the Biden
worst
administration has been just as
unemployment
bad on
since
tariffs,
the
so.
Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
I assume she's talking about January 6th.
What we have done is clean up Donald Trump's
I mean,
mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people.
39
but I'm
watch
tell
them,
you on
gentlemen.
this debate
39.
tonight,
Welcome,
you're
new
going to
people.
hear from the same old tired playbook.
Already our best
A
live stream.
bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025.
Oh, man, they're really trying to tie into
the
that.
former president
Wow.
intends on implementing if he
Ugh,
were
I'm
elected
gonna need
again.
another beer for this.
I believe
We might
very
need the
strongly
whiskey.
that the American people want
It's an
a
early whiskey
president
breakout,
who
guys.
understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing
her
we have
fault.
so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
Okay, that's
President
that's a
Trump will
really
give you
good
a minute
line.
to
You know,
Number one,
positive
I have
vision,
nothing
right?
to do, as you know, and as she knows
The
better
joy
than anyone,
candidate.
I have nothing
And
to
no,
do with
Jimmy, neither
Project
answered the question.
2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it
Evan asked
purposely.
what
I'm not
she's
going
wearing.
to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad. But it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the
That's
pandemic.
good coaching right there.
We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made
Okay, we gotta drink every
ventilators for the
time Trump
entire
says
world.
nobody's ever
we got
seen anything
gowns, we
like
got
it.
masks, we
What
did
about
things
when he
that nobody
repeats
thought
numbers?
possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the
Billions and
military. They give me credit for
People
a
are
lot
getting
of things,
bombarded with
but
ads,
not enough
apparently.
credit for the great job we did with the pandemic.
Wow, really?
But the only
Yeah.
jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back,
can
and it
cut
bounced
that
back,
down.
and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America.
That's very Trumpian. The
What
best
Goldman
economists
Sachs
have
has
reviewed
said
it, and they believe
is
it's
that
the, you know
Donald
what I mean?
Trump's
Very
plan
Trumpian sort
would
of
make the economy
rhetoric.
worse.
Which
Mine
economists?
would
The best
strengthen
ones.
the
The best
economy.
ones. Just the best
What
ones,
the
obviously.
Wharton School has
It's just-
said is Donald Trump's plan
Robert Reich.
would
That's the only
actually
economist.
explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance.
Did you hear that? That's just a
soundbite.
soundbite.
They gave her that to say.
I think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that he just, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Oof.
Mr. President, I do want to drill
Run,
down on
spot,
something
run.
you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000.
They're going to pull economists on the
Do you believe
results of
Americans
price
can
fixing.
afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years.
Ugh.
I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration.
Right.
We are going to
Totally
take in
redeem
billions
themselves.
of dollars, hundreds of billions
They don't
of
actually
dollars.
oppose the tariffs.
I
That's
had
the
no
that's the
inflation,
irony.
virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the
I love how they're
president
both
said there,
like
because the
listing
Biden
things off
administration
like
did
car
keep
seats and
a
cereal
number
and
of the
bacon
Trump
and
tariffs
eggs.
in
And
place. So how do you
it's
respond?
like, just make yourself seem normal.
Let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted
$6,000
in a
crib.
trade
Auntie,
deficit,
can I have
one
more
of the
bacon?
highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his
If
deal
you oppose
with
the trade
China,
wars,
what he
then why
ended
didn't you
up
cut
doing is
tariffs?
Under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America
feel like Trump
wins
just
the
prepped with a
competition
zinger
for the
right there. He
21st
gave a look.
century.
He's like,
which
"I'm
means
ready for this one."
focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on
Quantum
what we
computing?
need to do to support
First of all, it's a fancy
America's
thing. It's 2 letters.
workforce so that we don't end up
Two
having
words.
the,
She
the,
just
on the
heard that
short end of
today.
the stick in terms of workers' rights.
Hey,
But
Emily.
what Donald Trump did, let's talk
Emily.
about this,
Emily in the
with
chat.
COVID, is he actually thanked
Happy birthday tomorrow,
President
Emily. I don't know if
Xi
you were here earlier.
for what
Happy
he
birthday.
did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3
Well
years
played.
ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country,
That look,
and when
that's a
you look
scripted
at
look,
these
isn't it?
It is a
millions
scripted,
and millions
100%.
of people that are pouring into our country monthly,
It's a smart look,
where
though.
it's,
It
I
is.
believe, 21
Pensive.
million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump.
So
Thank you, Lindsay.
her policy
wanna
on
turn to
AI
the
is
issue
terrible.
of
To be clear, it
abortion.
was the
President
Biden
Trump, you often
administration.
touted
Kendall's
that
right.
you were
It
able
was
to
the Biden
kill Roe v.
administration
Wade
that told Mark
last year, and you
Andreessen,
said that you
"Yeah,
were
we
proud
can
to be
regulate
the
math.
most
Of course we can."
pro-life
Right.
president
Because we
in
did it with
American
physics in
history.
the nuclear
Then last
era.
month, you
Right.
said that your
So it's,
administration would
and it's not just
be
math,
It's a
great
way to
and
lose.
represent
It's the
women's
AI
rights.
It's linear
In your home
algebra.
state of
Right.
Florida,
Like,
you
that's all it
surprised
is.
many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that
Oh,
it was
getting
too
right
short.
into,
And you said,
abortion.
quote,
Right to
I'm going to be
abortion.
voting that
Yep.
we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor,
That
who's done
West
an
Virginia
excellent job.
governor.
But the governor before, he
Always
said
gonna be a good
the
talking
baby
point.
will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no
I think that's
state
wise
in this
because rather
country
than
where
running
it is
away
legal
from
to
it-
kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
The
She's
hard,
confused in
As I said,
ought
you're gonna
versus
hear a
is
bunch of
there. But
lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact.
it's smart
Let's
for him
understand
to
how
do
we
that,
got
to
here.
actually defend the justices
Donald
because he
Trump
owns the justices.
hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
I'm sorry, but how does Roe v. Wade make that any different?
Country.
That's still the
You wanna
government
talk
telling
about
a
this
woman
is
what to
what
do with their
people
body
wanted?
or allowing her to do,
Pregnant women who want
potentially
to carry
life-taking
a pregnancy to
measures.
term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
Didn't he just say?
She didn't want that.
Yes,
Her
he did.
husband
Didn't he just
want
say that?
A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term? They don't want that.
Is it 20 states?
And I pledge
She quoted
to
20
you,
states have.
when Congress passes a bill
I'd be curious
to put
how
back
well
in
the
place the
states'
protections
rights
of Roe
element
v.
of this
Wade,
actually
as
plays.
President of the United States, I will proudly
Probably the
sign
best
it
defense he has, though.
into
He has
the best
law.
defense, yeah.
But understand,
Just to the average
if
voter,
Donald
like, how
Trump
much
were
does
to
it
be reelected,
work,
he will
I guess?
sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would
She's
be a
really trying to
national
glue him to that.
abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach.
Oh.
Her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because
Zach,
she'd
I'm
never be able to
pro-aliens
get
here.
it, just
I
like
think
she
we should
couldn't
totally
get
have
student
alien
loans.
questions.
They couldn't get student loans. They
What?
didn't even come close to getting
We should
student
have
loans.
alien questions.
They
Zach, you know what?
taunted
They think
young
UAP is-
people
Zach in the
and a
chat
lot
is
of other
asking if
people
they're
that
going to
had
get
loans.
or hoping
They
they
can
get
never get
aliens.
this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to
So,
ask,
in
would
your
you
guys'
support
opinion, why
any
won't he
restrictions
give
on
a
a
yes or
woman's right
no
to an
for that?
abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating
Let's discuss
the
that at the
protections
break.
of Roe
Yeah.
v. Wade. And
I
as
have
you
several thoughts on that.
rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's
38
abortion
people
bans.
watching.
Couples who
Welcome,
pray
everyone. Thank you for being here.
and
see 39.
dream of having a family
It
are being
fluctuates. It
denied
sometimes pops up to like
IVF
45.
treatments.
Nice.
What is happening in our country? Working
As soon as you
people,
said that, it went
working
down.
women
Damn it.
who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare
Schrodinger's
as it
viewers.
is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. barely can afford to
Who
do
else
it.
do you
And
normally
what
sit
you are
next to on a
putting
plane?
her through is unconscionable.
Kamala mostly writes private.
And the
so
people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF,
Kendall always wanting
I
to
have
get
been
back to the
a leader.
economy.
In fact, when they
Kendall.
got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
he's been fertilizing.
You should ask.
Look at Barron.
He's been leading.
In the 8th month, 9th month,
Look at
7th
Barron.
month.
Guy's got kids.
Yeah.
Okay, would you do that?
Barron, fertile boy.
Oh, hold on, guys.
Why-
Hold
why
on, we
don't
got
you
spice here.
answer the question, would you
Because
veto?
under Roe
Why isn't her
v.
mic
The
muted?
question,
You
would you
could,
veto?
you could
Why
do
isn't her mic
abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia
West
said we
Virginia.
put the baby aside and then we determine
was
what we want to
Virginia.
do
I
with the
didn't think it
baby.
was
President Trump,
Well, he said
thank
West
you.
Virginia
We're
before.
going to turn now to immigration and
all the
border
same.
security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats,
They
voters
did say
across
if
the
it got
board,
spicy, they'd
in
let
this
him
country.
banter.
Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration.
admitting
This
it now?
past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most
Hey, Pat.
conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill,
It's
which
just the
I
same
supported.
answer.
And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now
from the,
overtime,
from
trying to
her
do
one
their
interview.
job. It would have allowed
not the
us
same, Emily? I
to
don't remember
stem
what I
the
said.
flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to
This is the exact
prosecute
answer she gave in the
transnational
interview.
It's almost word for
criminal
word.
It's like
Yeah,
literally
that's,
verbatim.
That's why I gave the heavy sigh. I was like,
You know what
oh,
happened
damn
to
it.
that bill?
Hey, Patrick and Katie,
Donald
thanks for
Trump
tuning
got on
in,
the
guys.
phone,
And Patrick
called
Fleming,
some
you are
folks in
correct.
Congress
She
and
has
said,
never been
"Kill
to the
bill."
border.
And you know
Despite
why?
being the borders there,
Because
what she
she
will
would
bring up.
prefer
She was
to
never
run
the
on a
borders are.
problem instead of fixing
I don't know where
a
you heard
problem.
that.
But she
And
prosecuted
understand,
transnational.
This comes at a
Criminals.
time
Human
where
traffickers.
the
It's
the
people
only
of our
trans-
country
I don't know,
actually
Emily.
need
They
a
both say
leader
Virginia in it.
who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do
Fair,
something really
fair.
unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch.
I was just at one.
You will see during the course
It
of
was
his
really
rallies
interesting to watch.
fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter.
It's where all the National Guard stuff
He will
went down.
talk about
All to
windmills
defend the
cause
guard.
cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and
You mean like
boredom.
after
And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about
rap
is
artist
you.
is done performing
You will
like they
not
do at
hear him
Kamala's
talk about
rallies.
your needs, your dreams, and your
Or
desires.
they leave early after someone
And I'll
tries to
tell you,
shoot
I
them.
believe you deserve a president
That one
who
did end
actually
early.
puts you
Yeah.
first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris,
Cheryl,
thank you.
I think you're
President
right.
Trump,
She
on
doesn't
that point, I
seem
want to get your
as
Well, I would like
spacey.
to respond.
Let me
No.
ask
This
though,
is
why
more
did
like
you try to
speech,
kill that
Kamala,
bill
and not
successfully
interview
so that would have put thousands of
Yeah, she's
additional
pretty
agents and
sharp.
officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to
shiny
her
object.
rallies. There's
Hold
no
on.
reason to go.
There's
And
no reason
the
to
people
go.
that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my
There's that
rallies.
scripted,
We have the biggest rallies,
pose.
the most
She's also
incredible
getting him on the
rallies in
defensive.
history of
This is the thing
politics.
that's attacking
That's
his
because
ego,
people
so he's
wanna
not
take
talking
Yeah, that's
about
what I mean.
country
This
back.
is shiny
Opportunity to talk about
object like
immigration.
Dave
is
Smith was
being
talking
lost.
about.
We're a failing nation.
Shiny object.
And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here,
Oh,
you're going
he
to
did
end up in
pivot.
World War III, just to go into another subject. what they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. They're eating
That's just like, what are you talking
the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Her reaction is unbelievable.
Her reaction is like, what?
What are you talking about?
You're crazy.
The reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she
Best moment
becomes
of the night right
president,
there.
this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, will end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there.
Here we go.
There have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals.
Oh, they got to fact check them.
Community.
Well,
All
I've
this.
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that.
I watched a
maybe
video
that's
before
good thing
coming
to
here
say
of a
for
Haitian
city
cooking a
manager.
cat.
I'm not taking this from
But
television.
the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
It's not possible for the city
Again,
manager to have a
Springfield city
political
manager says
incentive
there's no evidence of that.
to do
Vice
anything.
President
What are you
Harris,
talking
I'll let you
about?
respond to the rest of what you've heard.
There is a picture. There is a picture of a Haitian carrying 2 geese in his hands while crossing the street.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President
that's a good
Bush,
play.
Mitt Romney,
That's a good play.
and John McCain,
Make him look crazy.
including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congressmember.
She's gonna own that?
Liz
Why would you
Cheney.
promote this?
And if you want
Dude,
to really
they're really
know
leaning into this.
the
You think
inside
Republicans like
track
Dick Cheney?
on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has
better
contempt
dunk
for the
on this Dick Cheney
Constitution of
thing.
the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term.
That's what they said about the
And
first
when
one.
we
though.
Or they
listen
ducks, Evan. They
to
might have been
this
ducks,
kind
not
of
geese.
rhetoric,
I couldn't really
when
tell.
the issues that
memes are
affect the
ducks.
American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else, can they? But they have done such a poor job. And they never fired him.
No one else can.
Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written
Come on,
about
talk about
you.
Dick Cheney.
But just
Trump.
to finish, I
yeah,
got more votes
I feel like he's missing an
than any
opportunity.
Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let
He
me
missed the Dick Cheney moment.
he missed
you wanted
a
to talk
good
about
chance.
earlier.
That's a
So
good
let's get back to
opportunity.
your deportation
They made movies about
that
how
the Vice
evil Dick
President has
Cheney
reacted
is.
to
Like
as
the
well.
average American, I'm
President
sure,
Trump,
is not
you call
wondering
this
what
the
Dick Cheney thinks
largest
about the
domestic
president's.
deportation operation in the history
President,
of
he
our country.
like
You say
he
you would use
easily
the
could have
National Guard.
pivoted
You say
because he
things get
brought
out of
up
control.
the
You have
withdrawal.
no problem
Like he
using the
could
US
have been
military.
like,
You also
and
said
then
you
on
would
top of
use
all
local
that,
police.
you are bragging
How would
about
you
Dick Cheney. Yeah,
deport
yeah,
11
total
million
missed opportunity.
I agree, Cheryl. I
know
think she's doing
you
really
believe
well.
That number is much
I
higher.
do too.
Good
Take us
for
through
sure.
this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world,
Dogs up 83%.
crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for
Here comes the line.
national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page
anyone else in the chat hear
on
her
this
say
same
Vice
old
President?
tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses.
She sounds really
address
polished.
bringing down the price
She's
of
killing this
groceries.
answer.
Her coaching was great.
But
It was.
frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
When you get the questions
Vice President
beforehand.
Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the
Let's be sure to
Attorney
circle around on
General
the
of New
violent
York
crime
and the
question
DA in New
during
York.
the commercials, 'cause I have
Every
some
one of
thoughts we
those
can talk about
cases.
that.
Abortion
and then
and violent crime.
they say,
Both of
oh,
those.
he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all.
I see you, Watson.
Complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they
Patrick.
used
He
it, and it's
confirmed.
never happened in this
She did
country.
say former
They
Vice
used
President.
it to try and win an election. They're
President Trump.
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has
Only
openly
official
said
duties.
he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they
He
say
never
about
brings
me.
this up.
They
Ooh.
talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that
to get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to.
Can't let him bring up the
Vice President
assassination
Harris,
attempt.
in your
That's
last
too
run
dangerous.
for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory
Yeah, so much
government
for the,
buyback
tempered
programs
rhetoric.
for assault weapons.
Yeah.
Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not
question.
changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've
Transing
made.
the
But in
migrants,
particular,
let's
talk
go.
about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in
'Cause you
fact,
can't make
I
calls.
was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work.
Dude,
to say
she's
we are going
getting
to
them.
work with the
This is
private
good
sector
rhetoric.
and home
She's
builders
doing
to
well.
increase
I don't know if his reaction
3
helps or
million
not.
homes,
I-
increase
the
by
la-
3
my gut
million
right now
homes by the
feels
end of
like
my
it
first
doesn't.
term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
She
And
mentioned
my
this in her,
focus then
DNC
on
speech.
protecting women and children from violent crime is
Are we
based
talking
on
about
a
right now?
value.
Chad,
that
I wanna
is
know, who do you
deeply
think is winning
grounded
this
in the
debate right now?
importance
Well, we put in
of
the
I do
poll.
have a
standing
poll,
up
and it's
for
like
those who are
50-50
most
right now.
vulnerable.
Oh.
56
My work
on Trump.
that is about protecting Social Security
Make
and
sure you vote.
Medicare is based on
out the vote.
long-standing
I'll
work
keep
that
it
I
up
have
for a
done,
while
protecting
until I come up
seniors
with a
from
different poll.
scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is
it's
that there is a
50-50.
president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down.
And boxed wine.
And name calling. The true measure of the leader
From the top rope.
is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people
Yeah, I
down,
think
it's
you're
in
right,
lifting
Cheryl.
people
Yeah.
up.
Trump needs
I
to talk to
intend
us,
be that
not respond to
president.
her. I think it's a really
President
good
Trump,
point.
He's on the
First of all, I
defensive.
wasn't
He needs a good
given
halftime.
$400 million. I wish I was. My
He needs
father was
Corey
a
in the
Brooklyn
back,
builder, Brooklyn Queens.
hyping him up during
and
halftime.
a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars. Many, many
Why don't
billions.
respond to
And when
this?
people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever.
For that.
She gave all that stuff up.
Yeah, Trump's on the
very
defense, I
wrongly,
agree,
very
Liam.
horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now.
Ooh.
If you don't mind, please.
Ooh.
Ooh, that's her
Does that
line.
sound
That's her line. Oh,
He even referenced it.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed
took her
people,
line from
that
her.
burned down Minneapolis.
But
she went out and
it's gonna be-
raised money to
I
get
just
them
know
out
the
of
headlines.
jail.
Mis-
She did
misogynistic
things that
comments.
nobody would ever
Yeah.
think of. Now
There's a
she
danger
wants to
there,
do
but it was kinda funny.
transgender operations on illegal aliens
shut
that
her
are in
up.
prison.
Trans migrants.
This is a
You called us
radical
migrants.
left liberal that would do
She
this.
wants to trans
she
the
wants
migrants.
to confiscate
That's
your
how you keep
guns,
migrants
and
out
she
right
will
there.
never allow fracking in
Or
Pennsylvania.
cut your dick off.
If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will
You're a
end on
migrator.
day one.
So sorry
Just
for
to
all the
finish one
kids
thought. It's all
watching.
important,
Sorry.
in my opinion.
My bad, guys.
I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar. but they take 400,
That didn't make
500
sense.
acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay,
He
thank
didn't
you. We
summarize
have an
that
election
criticism
in just
well.
56 days.
What?
And
That
I want to
criticism
talk about
wasn't
the
summarized
peaceful
well, but it's a really
transfer
good
of power,
criticism.
which,
Yeah, true.
of course,
I
we
think you
all
needed
know
more
is a
prep.
cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a president
Didn't have Chris
in
Christie
a
this
moment
time.
of crisis.
Strikes me as he hasn't
Mr.
prepped
President, on
much.
January 6th, you told your supporters
Oh,
to march
Jan
to the
6th.
Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just ask you.
He's repeating
David,
himself.
When are those people going to be
He
prosecuted?
seems a little shaken
when are the
right now.
people that
He's
burned
off his
down
game.
Well, at least I get a little
Minneapolis
bit
gonna be
angry,
prosecuted?
Yeah.
unless
Or in
I'm more,
Seattle,
once
they
again,
went
more on the
into Seattle.
defensive.
They
rather
took
than-
over a big
He
percentage
needed to
of the
do what
city
he
of
did in
Seattle.
dirt with Biden.
When are
I
those
think.
people going
He
to
had
be
a
prosecuted?
better energy for it.
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me.
glad
It was
he
just
actually did bring
2 weeks
this
ago. Her
part up.
daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president,
That was
not
well answered.
about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond.
So I like how he's making the
I was at the
moderator is
Capitol on
making him
January
answer the
6th.
question, not her.
I was the
Like, that
vice
selective
president
moment is
elect.
really
I was
important.
also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the
So they don't.
former
They're not going
president
to.
has
They're
been
not going to correct her on the
indicted
some
and
died.
impeached.
Right? They're not
for
going to say he
exactly
died from a
that
heart
reason.
attack afterwards. Right?
Yeah.
Or
But
anything
this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville,
Gives me
Oh, that was on my
where
bingo
there
card.
was
Bring
a
it up.
mob of people carrying tiki torches,
it's the reason Biden
spewing
ran.
anti-Semitic
Charlottesville.
hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
Oh my God.
Let's remember
Back to
that
this.
when it came
Re-adjudicate
to
Charlottesville
the Proud Boys,
again?
a militia,
Hooray!
the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to
I
turn
really
the page.
don't like that slogan.
And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course.
Parents watching at home,
for the
don't let your
future
kids into the chat right
and
now.
not go backwards
Just give it a
to
few
the
minutes.
past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll
He
tell
really
you what
needs
I
to
would
not
do,
go back
and
to
I
the
would be
border
very
anymore.
proud
What
to
was
do
the
it.
guy
I
about
would
the,
say we would both
universal
leave
basic
this
income?
debate right now. I'd like to see her go down
Andrew Yang?
Yeah,
to
he's Andrew
Washington,
Yanging it
D.C.
right now.
during
He's
this
just like,
debate because we're wasting
whatever the topic
a lot of
is,
time.
get to the border.
Go
He's
down
letting
to-
it all
'cause
yang
she's
out.
been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the
annoying that
border.
the moderators
because they
don't
have the
correct her
right to
when
do
she
it. They
says
don't need
something,
bills.
though.
They
It reminds
have
me
the
of
right to do it.
Romney
The President
Obama.
of the
There
United
was that
States, you'll
famous
get him out
moment
of
with
bed.
Romney.
You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people,
I wanna-
unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten.
It's all they have, Kendall.
The election,
they have
people
to go
should
to
never
talk
be
about this
thinking
stuff.
about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls.
You have to
we
demonize
need-
them. That's-
and we have
that's
to
all they
have
got.
it. We have to have borders.
She doesn't have
And we have
policies.
to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this.
We got the
you and your
CEO of
allies,
the-
60 cases.
You're not in the
front of
debate,
many
dude.
judges,
Stop
many
debating.
Republicans
It's not moderating.
said there
They
was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing.
We got the
That's
CEO of
other
the Frontier
thing.
Institute
They
wanting to
said
get
we
back to
didn't have
policy
standing, a
discussions here.
technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline. And they have put it into decline.
There you go.
We
Good
have
picture.
a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did
that's
not
not-
lose
He
the
did
election.
say he said it in jest.
That was won
Sarcasm,
by
yeah.
President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come
That's a
up in
good
the last
point, Evan.
couple of
When
days.
was
This
the
was
last
a
time
post
she
from
talked?
President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
What a softball question.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Wow.
They're like, here you go.
People.
Eh.
So let's be
Well,
clear about
it's also
that.
we just talked
And
about him
clearly
talking
he is
about the
having a
election being
very
cheated, and then
difficult
they're
time
like,
processing
but he's going to
that.
cheat, right?
Yeah, right.
We cannot afford to have a president of the United States who
totally agree. Some foreign
attempts,
policy
as he
would be
did
great.
in the past,
Everything that
to
Kendall said in there.
upend the
Yeah.
will
Inflation,
of the
national
voters
debt,
in a
World
free
War
and
III.
fair
And aliens.
election.
Tech.
And
And I'm going to
aliens.
tell you that
And aliens.
I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States. And
Just
world
not to
leaders
the
are
border.
laughing.
Just not to the border.
I have talked with
hasn't even been to
military
Europe.
leaders, some of whom work with you. And they say you're a disgrace.
Ooh.
And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in
Because
fact lose
they
that
wouldn't
election.
try them, though,
It
right?
leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Victor
I haven't looked at
Orban, one of the
Polymarket.
most respected men. They call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look,
Before they
Victor
blew it up.
Orban
I was just gonna say.
said it.
Are they
And
not
then
gonna-
blew it up.
are they not
most
gonna have, like, a
respected,
halftime break?
most feared
There should
person
be. There should be 2
is
commercial
Donald
breaks.
Trump. We had no problems when Trump
Already an
was
hour in.
president. But when this weak,
I was looking at
pathetic
that.
man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14
nasty.
million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it
Mr.
because
President, your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war.
That was a good
and
way to pivot, like
hostages were
pivoting to
still
her
being
not
held,
actually being elected in front.
Americans
He
among
didn't
them.
articulate it
Vice
well,
President
though.
Harris, in
But it was a
December,
good
you
debate
said, quote,
tactic to
Israel
move
has a
the
right to
democracy
defend
question
itself,
in
but
her
you added,
direction.
quote,
Who will
it
win
matters
debate
how,
according to polls,
saying
94%
international
Kamala on
humanitarian law
Polymarket.
must be respected. Israel
Yeah, I
must do
think
more to
Kamala's
protect
winning this
innocent
handily,
civilians.
personally.
Me too.
You said that
Same.
9 months ago.
Unfortunately.
Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been
For
able
sure,
to break
Adam.
through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Next 72 hours is going to be all psyops
let's
on all
understand
sides.
how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many
I think
innocent
Trump's gonna
Palestinians have been
be
killed.
bad on this answer.
Children, mothers. What we know is that this
She always gives
war
non-answers
must
on this, too,
end.
though.
Yeah,
It
but
must end immediately.
she has more to lose on
and
the
the way
subject.
it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist
you gotta explain that one.
2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel. Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself.
He's a Putin puppet, right?
It is well known that he said of
This is how she got the
Putin
Dick Cheney vote, right
that
here.
he can do whatever the hell he wants in going to Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine,
Can you believe it? He doesn't want to bomb Russia?
Brilliant.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, you can't talk to Kim
And it is
Jong-un.
absolutely
Dude, the negotiations
well
with Kim Jong-un were
that these
such an awesome
dictators
moment.
and autocrats are rooting
One of the best things Trump did.
for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by
he should
allowing
explain her
every
role
nation
in the
last
Ukraine war.
month for the year,
It would be such a slam dunk.
168 different countries sending people into our country.
Like
Their
going
crime
to a
rates
peace
are way
summit
down.
and saying Ukraine will join NATO.
Putin endorsed her last
He should
week.
explain it right here.
Said, I hope she wins.
won't.
And I think he meant it. Because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And
Yes,
I just
Watson.
ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential
thank
debate
God.
from the National Constitution
Get that
Center
whiskey
right
out.
I
here
can't
in
believe it took him
Philadelphia.
an hour to get to a break. Whew.
Yeah,
Wow.
We really might need those. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mostly because it's just to me he's doing really poorly.
I agree. Like I don't know about like really poorly, but he's definitely not at his best at all.
Well, it seems like, and I think we can all agree, and I think the chat agrees, obviously Polymarket agrees, it seems like he is just constantly on the defensive. She is throwing up flares for him to go after that are distracting him from the policy positions that he holds that differentiate her and make him a much better candidate than her in those respects. And she's then going and attacking the policy issues and kind of sweeping the floor with him, in my opinion.
It doesn't help too that every question the moderators are raising are all the things that are like, here's the things that we've been villainizing Trump with for the last several years.
Yeah, right.
How do you respond to those, Trump? You know, and so there's not a policy discussion to be had.
Right. That's
none
fair.
of the questions are geared towards it.
True.
So he's stuck having to be on the defensive the entire time.
Thought experiment. When they ask the Ukraine question, which they inevitably must, right? Are they going to go to Kamala Harris and say, Kamala Harris, you went to the NATO summit and said that Ukraine's going to join NATO, provoking Russia to invade. How do you answer for this?
I don't think that question.
You don't think they're going to say it that way?
Question's coming,
really?
no.
Wow. Because that's kind of like asking the questions they've asked so far.
Yeah.
It's the same
J6
thing.
and all these, it would be the same type of a deal. And it's the same thing as like they're asking the same types of questions, which are the biggest hits on her, which is what the Dana Bash interview was. It's like, now I'm spacing on what some of those questions were, but like it's those ones that everybody are like critiquing her. Fracking would be one of those. But then it's like she clearly has a scripted response ready for that. So it's like, here's your chance to clear the air on this one, and they're like providing her the opportunity. They're not framing the questions in such a way where it's like, this is going to kill you.
Totally true. I think the problem though is that Trump is not adept at answering the question he wants to answer, not the one that he's asked. In fact, not even, he can't even address the policy issue if Kamala, wraps into her answer in some way a personal attack against him or some diminishment of his administration. He's completely off track. He's completely on the defensive at this point and unable to engage in the actual debate itself.
I would not be shocked right now if there was a 2016 question, giving the questions off to the campaign type of deal.
Oh, interesting.
It feels, I get that vibe. It feels like she knew exactly all the questions beforehand. I guess a lot of these questions probably not.
These are predictable.
Yeah, they're predictable questions, but she's so scripted and well prepared for this.
Well, some of them are the same exact ones from the interview.
They are,
right.
Which comes with the talking points of the media always, right?
Yeah.
Right. Although that is also coaching. Coaching gives that sense that you're answering a question you've been asked before.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it makes you wonder, what was Trump's coaching like that he wasn't prepared for this stuff? Or maybe he was, and is this just his nature? I mean, he is
going off script,
older, and just he has his things that he likes to talk about. But she does look very poised. Just from a visual perspective, Trump looks a little angry. He's a little shouty with his responses, and she's very calm. Almost sincerely kind of she has this face that she puts on sometimes where it's like, I feel sorry for you. It's it's really good. Her visual is really, really strong.
They brought in Hollywood coaches.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, for the debate prep. I don't know what Trump's debate prep looked like. It sounded like he didn't really do a whole lot. They brought on Tulsi to help out, and they're like, hey, watch these moments where where Kamala got destroyed in 2020, that type of stuff. But I was watching, Kamala was interviewed, asking about the debate prep, and she just kept going back, he's going to focus on policy, he's going to focus on policy, and there hasn't been room to focus on policy at all.
Right.
There's been no questions regarding policy, really.
And it is one of those things, debates, the better strategy for debates are typically advancing your messaging. And when you're on defense and you're defending yourself, you're not advancing your messaging.
Right.
So that's in the answer the question you've been want to answer rather than the question you were asked. He needs to stop responding to attacks and just start. And if he's going to respond to attack, do it pithy, right? And do it attack on democracy. No one's ever even voted for you,
right?
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And then move on.
That would be a great zinger. Actually,
that would be a good zinger. Yeah, he's not a concise speaker, generally speaking, which I think is maybe why he does better at rallies and on podcasts where he has long form to do it. She is certainly in her element in this moment, it seems like.
Well, but he was good at debates, right? The Republican debates in 2016 is the anchor moment for him, or 2016, right? Where he could interrupt and he could.
There was such a novelty at that point where there was so much of the oh my God, can you do that? Oh my God, Trump just did that. The debates are never like that.
I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5
years
here
we go.
Into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia.
See, they
from
frame
Vladimir
it.
Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their
It's the
democracy.
framing.
Wow.
It's the framing.
Democracy.
Best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop.
Framing.
I want to save lives that are being uselessly people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody.
Putin
They don't
said
even
that,
try
too.
and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it.
Shift to
and
Burisma
now you
now.
have
Shift
millions
to
of
Burisma
people
now.
dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a
Fed him to a
president...
Haitian.
Fed him
to a I was going for that,
Just
too.
to clarify the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interests for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
Negotiate it.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on
That's the
support
right way to
for
answer that
Ukraine
question, by the
in
way.
this
Yeah.
moment.
Focus
But
on the
also,
human life.
as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Give them all the
Well,
money.
first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that
Because you
Donald
threatened
Trump
the 25th
says
Amendment
that
against
this
him.
war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met
Americans
with Zelensky
sacrificed the lives of
a
Ukrainians
few
for their
days
geopolitical
before
hegemony.
Russia
Duh.
invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank,
Also convince
to
him
Poland and Romania.
not to drop out of the war.
And through the work that I and
Well, we
others
sent
did,
Boris
we
Johnson to
brought
do
50
that.
countries together
Was
to
that that?
support Ukraine in its
Or did I
righteous
make that
defense.
up?
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yep.
All
And
right, cool.
because of our support,
Israel
because of the air defense, the ammunition, the
Boris,
artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand
getting
what
the
that would
whiskey out.
mean, because
That's
Putin's
really what I
agenda
wanted.
is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the
I'll do
European
that, Joe, by
allies
the
and
way.
our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes
Were
on
they
the
not
rest of
independent
Europe,
before?
starting with Poland. And
They
why
weren't,
don't you
because
tell
we
the
overthrew the government in
800,000
2015.
Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would
Touche,
give up
touche.
for the sake of
What she means by
favor
independence, she means
and
vassal
what you
state.
think is a
Yeah.
friendship
Right, yes.
with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Like
for
a
both
Haitian
of you
would a
on
cat.
Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour.
You eat pieces
I
of
wanted
shit
to
for
respond to something you
breakfast.
said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started.
Here we go.
3 days later, he went in and he started the war.
No!
Because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never
be more
started.
specific, Trump.
She was the emissary.
You're
They
right,
sent
but you
her
need to be
in
more specific.
negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of
Just
talent
need to say
we have
NATO
with her.
expansion in
She's
there, he
worse
would have
than
had
Biden.
it.
In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a
The way he explains it, it makes it
horrible negotiator.
seem like he's just flailing
They
bombs
sent her
out,
in
and he
to
needs to be very
negotiate.
precise.
As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went
I
to
missed it. What
negotiate with
happened?
Vladimir Putin.
Right.
Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella.
She's never met him.
And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a
I don't know
leader upholding
what
international
reality I was living in
rules
that the
and norms,
moderator would
as a
have
leader
been like,
who shows
"You went
strength,
to this NATO
understanding
thing
that
and-"
the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief.
So the
and
better
American
tactic for
people
Trump here would have been
a
to
right
anchor
to
on Burisma
rely
and NATO expansion on this topic
president
rather than
who
just kind of generally
understands
attacking
the
them for being dumb and
significance
weak.
of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring
Evan, you're
that
right.
there
I
is
don't know what I was
stability
thinking.
and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell
Stupid,
them
Bennett,
for,
stupid.
for the benefit of personal flattery.
The moderators
We
won't
talked about
ask good
Ukraine
questions
and
to
Vladimir
her.
Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to
That's the
Afghanistan.
role of the
It
American
came up
mob
in the first
boss.
hour
You
of the
make 'em
debate,
pay up.
and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from
here we
Afghanistan.
go.
I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that
Are
withdrawal
they going to
played
ask him
out?
about Arlington?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of
Instead,
today,
it's Ukraine.
there is
Started a
not
brand new
one
endless war to the
member
Ukraine.
of the United States military who is in
Just in time for
active
Ukraine.
duty in a combat zone in any war zone
awfully
around the
convenient.
world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down.
She
He
hooked him.
bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban.
That's the enemy
The
that you're
negotiation
negotiating with. Of course
involved the
you have to
Taliban
negotiate with the
getting
Taliban.
5,000
negotiate
terrorists,
with
Taliban
terrorists.
terrorists released. And get this, no,
So
get this.
who would she be negotiating
And
with Israel,
the
Hamas?
president at the time invited the Taliban to
The donor
Camp
class.
David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place
brought
where
Yasser
we
Arafat,
honor
a
the
terrorist,
importance of
to Camp
American
David in the Oslo
diplomacy, where
Accords.
we invite and receive
What?
respected world leaders. And this
It's so funny. She's flipping this on its head because it's their decision to change the plan to the late fall rather than to pull out in the spring.
Because he does not again appreciate the role
that made it what it was.
And responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, 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 and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to
really
race
quick.
politics
69% of all
Mr.
military
President, you recently
members
said of
polled
Vice
plan
President
to vote
Harris,
for Trump
quote,
as
I didn't
opposed to
know she was
20%
black until a
for
number
Joe
of years
Biden. I would
ago
assume that was
when
number
she
10
happened to
to Kamala.
turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
The way that Trump described
I want to
that,
ask a bigger
you
picture
kind of have to
question
know
here
what's
tonight.
going on to
Why
be
do you
able to
believe
get
it's
it.
appropriate to weigh
That's the
in
problem
on
with
the
a lot of
racial
Trump's
identity
answers on
of your
things.
opponent?
I don't, and I don't care.
Racial
I don't
identity.
care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her.
And it's true
That's
that
up
her
to her.
Wikipedia at
Vice
one
President
point
Harris, your thoughts on
emphasized
this?
her being an Indian American, and then now
I think
emphasizes
it's-
her being black.
I mean, honestly, I think
you
it's
can go to the
a
Wayback Machine and confirm
tragedy
that for yourself.
that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates
Remember
us,
the
and we
Summer
don't
of
want
Love?
this kind of approach that is just constantly
Mostly
trying
peaceful.
to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated.
He's been better
because
since the break.
He refused to rent property to black families.
He's got Corey in the back.
Let's
just like
remember, this is the
getting him
same
back into it.
individual
She didn't say prosecuted. She
who
said
took out a
investigated.
full-page ad in
You
the
got
New York
investigated.
Times,
You got
calling
accused
for the
of.
execution
You literally investigated accused
of
on anything. Like,
5
that's.
young
I don't know. I don't even know the
black
story.
and
but come on now.
Latino boys
I
who
feel like I
were
remember
innocent,
that from
the Central Park
his first
5,
run.
took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this.
You're right, Evan. She went off script there and got a
Want
little
someone
weird on
who
the whole
understands
what
as
this
I do, I
original
travel our
story is.
country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden, the worst inflation we've ever had.
Who's Biden? I don't know who that is.
A horrible economy because
Doesn't ring a bell.
inflation
That kind of makes
has
sense.
made
She's at the
it
beach.
so bad
She's
that
dealing
you
with
can't get
Lincoln.
away with that.
Never met him.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do.
But are you proud of the Biden administration?
Disparaging the American people.
You were part of
I
that.
believe in what we can do.
Do you not agree
to
with his policies?
strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup
The TV
businesses
just go into hibernation?
$50,000 tax deduction.
No, I
To
think he touched
pursue
the
their
power.
ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue
TV
what has
just
been
unplugged in our
fleeting in
end.
terms
I don't
of
know
the
if it went
American
dark on you
dream
guys.
by offering
We're getting it fixed.
help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
Oh, no, yeah, we're
That's
still
the kind
broadcast,
of
just on TV.
conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the
TV
page
says no
Vice
and
President
move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
Yeah, I think it
defund
changed.
the
It
police.
needs to go to.
She has a plan to confiscate everybody's guns.
We're getting it
President
fixed.
Trump,
Something got
we have to
unplugged.
move on
To not
other
allow
issues.
We should still be
fracking
getting
in
audio.
Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that
All
I
right,
need to
we should be
respond
back.
to.
I'm sorry, we're
I
going
just need
to
to
move
respond
on.
Let's make
Vice
sure.
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the
Be clear, she
Affordable
said
Care
a new
Act,
generation.
also
She was born in
known as
1964,
Obamacare. You
so
have
she's a
failed
baby
to
boomer.
accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless
she's
we can
back.
do something
We back.
much better.
Sorry about that,
Last
guys.
month,
It's
you
almost
said,
better
quote,
this
"We're
way. Thanks,
working
Evan."
on it." So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice
Putting a poll,
to
has
make.
Trump recovered
Do
in
I
the second
save it
half?
and make it as good as it can be,
feel
or do
like
I let
since
it
I
rot?
said he's doing better,
and I
he's
saved it.
done
I did
worse.
the right thing. But
He's answering the
it's
question
still
here,
never
but
going to be
I should have
great,
done
and it's
well.
too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive.
It's not a good answer to that.
And there are
even if it's true, like that's how the process will
We're going
work.
to do this and this and this.
And you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie
really
Sanders'
bad.
proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run health care system.
Donald Trump
2 years
for you.
later, you proposed a plan that included
He's
a
a wild
private
card.
insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely
Concepts
support,
of
and
the
over
plan.
the last 4
Concepts.
years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made.
You don't
I've
even
made
have a
very clear my
plan?
position on fracking. And then
Her
this
plan came out
business
this
about
week.
taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act,
Tim Walz
understand,
literally is
just
pro-
look at the history to know where people stand.
They are banned,
when
right?
Donald Trump was president,
It's known, right?
60
But
times
not every single
he tried
gun,
to get rid
Dave.
of the Affordable Care
good
Act.
point.
60
Specific guns.
times. I was a senator
All you need is a shotgun.
at the time. When
Boom, boom.
I will never forget
He
the
carried those
early
guns in
morning
war.
hours when it was up
In
for
Italy.
a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being you don't like him, you said at the time, because
And now all
he
his
got
people are
caught.
endorsing
he
you.
was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and
I was
said,
appalled.
no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done
Got
is
'em.
eliminate the
Got 'em.
ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have
Nobody can
allowed
clap,
for the
Evan,
first
there's
time
no
Medicare
audience.
to negotiate drug prices
clap.
on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month.
I think
Since
that's
I've
right,
been
Mesa.
vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for
One of the
seniors
reasons
at
he's like he's doing so bad
$2,000
is
a
we
year.
know how
And
far
when
short
I
he
am
could be
president,
he's falling
we
of
will
the
do
act.
that for all people, understanding
expectations are
that
also very
the value
low.
I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right.
Very
and
true,
not
Emily.
just a
He needs to
privilege
talk about
of
Make
those who
America
can
Healthy Again.
afford it. And the plan has to be to
The late,
strengthen
great
the
John
Affordable Care Act,
McCain.
not get rid of it.
He would be endorsing Kamala
Vice President
alongside
Trump
Dick Cheney
in terms of where
because he
Donald
is
Trump
Dick
stands
Cheney.
on that.
I'm sure he'll
I wanna
vote from the
move to an
grave.
issue that's important for a
You
lot
made a
of
mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump-
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Framing.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now
it's
is
hot
either
in the
being
summertime.
denied home
Thanks,
insurance or
Kamala.
it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that
I
means
love
in
this.
terms of
I love
losing
this.
their home, having nowhere
We
to
have to
go.
be unburdened
We
by
know
weather.
that we
change.
can
She's talking
actually
about the
deal
weather
with
right
this
now,
issue.
not
The
climate.
young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that
Sometimes
as
the
vice
weather's
president
hot,
over the
sometimes
last
the
4
weather's
years,
cold.
we have invested $1 trillion
Therefore, climate change.
in a clean energy
Thank you,
economy,
Kamala.
while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world.
Kendall.
Donald Trump said he was going to create
We should talk
manufacturing
about
jobs.
nuclear.
He lost
Also just
manufacturing
building
jobs.
energy.
And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes
Trump has the
investing
opportunity to
in
pivot
American-made
making it an issue
products,
people care
American
about right now.
automobiles.
We'll
It
see if he
includes
does.
growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse.
Answer the question you want to be answered.
Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did he get? Why did
I forgot about that story.
$3.5 million?
We covered that a long time ago.
This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
I don't remember that at all.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of
I remember
our
I brought up that
candidates.
issue on the podcast a long
He
time
answered
ago.
one good. That was well done. I wish he would have brought up the Ukraine and Russia stuff and China stuff back in the foreign
Why is he
policy
doing
section.
it right before closing statements?
Yeah, why is he doing the climate change question?
You got to end strong. You got to end strong.
Needed more of that, though.
Yeah, a lot more of that. Well, I mean, I don't think he has a strong statement about climate change, obviously, because, I mean, well, if he thinks it's a hoax, yeah, would he, right?
Yeah, right.
But I do think that was a good example of answering the question you want to answer.
And also, one of the things you could do is like, yeah, they really believe in climate change. That's why they want to. They approve fracking in a bill that's supposedly about inflation, handling inflation. They approved fracking leases and then gave away a bunch of your money to green energy companies. That was the bill, right?
Yeah.
That's the inflation. Oh yeah, they really care about climate change. They blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, the greatest act of industrial sabotage, releasing more CO2 ever. You know, like in a single act. I mean, that's exactly.
Wasn't under Trump, wasn't the U.S. the most in line with the Paris Climate Accords
because
after
of
leaving it?
Yeah, because of fracking. Right.
We had a clip on that last week.
Which
And go
is
check it out.
actually, Kamala said in her interview that was the reason why she changed her stance on fracking, is because it turns out it's better. You know,
No, that's what she should have said. She
Is
didn't
that
say
what it
that,
was?
and then
Yeah,
I
that
said
was- that
she
was
could have
Dave's
said that.
recap.
Oh no, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Dave that said that.
I was coaching her.
Dave, Kamala, similar.
Yeah, she could have been watching our clips and known how to answer those questions.
I think the real
Is
question.
she a fan?
I think the real question we need to ask is, Dave, when are you going to run for president?
God no,
Because man, you got all the answers in the bag here. If you were on that stage,
I don't know.
we wouldn't be asking any of these
I think
questions.
this podcast would be detrimental to Dave.
Not if it blows up and goes huge.
I did say
So-
our immigration policy might be best reformed by transing all the migrants. I'm
Well-
sure that's a great way to go.
That is
Okay,
true.
fair.
That was on this stream.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, it's like Trump needed more of those types of things where he pivoted to a little bit more specifics on things that people actually cared about in a question that a lot of people don't necessarily care about, but it was still in that ballpark.
It kills me he didn't bring up her being the one to kind of basically, you could make the argument that she started the Ukraine war.
Well, yeah, it was one of those things. Like, he alluded to those things and he kind of vaguely said it, but he needed to be more specific, because if you don't know the situation, if you don't know the topic, if you haven't been as steeped into it like people like us are. The average, just middle of the road voter who's still making up their mind, they're just gonna be like, "Oh, Trump's just throwing random bombs at the wall." It seemed like he's just kind of flailing. Yeah. But if he honed in and was more specific on that, it would have been such a clear cut. Like, no, you caused a lot of this problem. You were a major variable at those NATO peace summits.
Yeah, if he would have said, "You went to NATO in Bucharest and you did this and you
like specific time and date, you were there."
That's all there,
right?
Yeah.
And then people would be like, "Oh my God, she was there," and people wouldn't be aware of that.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think that's the same problem that we can tend to have maybe on our podcast is like distilling things down for people that aren't like in the news all the time. Right. I do want to get to the point though that Liam in the chat says David ran for governor. So I think you heard it here first. We got an endorsement. Also, Jimmy Co. 1 saying still leaning heavily on voting Nota, which for those not in the know is none of the above. So, Jimmy,
totally understand, man.
Jimmy, respect your choices, man. I respect your choices. All right. Well,
it's one of those things where I can get, especially if like I don't know your normal political persuasion, but I can get where like the libertarians in the crowd would lean towards voting for Trump because of the big tent nature, but then also leaning away from him because of there are plenty of grievances to have with Trump if you're kind of in that milieu, right?
Well, additionally, just like he has this opportunity to win with good answers.
Matt Ryan in the chat,
and Matt Ryan left off, right? Like he could have answered these questions way better. This is going to impact things because this is the only debate we're getting.
Yeah.
This is it, guys.
Right.
That's the unfortunate thing is like I feel like that's actually one of the reasons for not having another debate is because they hit on all the issues that are Trump's weaknesses. Yeah. All the issues, quote unquote. I know Kendall will in the chat will say that they're not actual issues because they're not policies where if we had future debates, they'd probably be forced to get into policy things because they wouldn't want to rehash the things that happened in the previous debate.
The other piece of it too is like the Kamala campaign can approach this like you would approach cramming for a final exam in college, right? You just stuff her full of information. She goes out there and does one great performance, and then that's all she has to do. Yeah. That's a good strategy for someone whose strong suit is not
one
policy.
More interview
maybe
down the road that'll be more softballs to like halfway into voting having started.
My money would not be on another Kamala interview, but we'll see. All right, we've got the debate coming back here.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past. And an attempt to take us backward.
We're not going back.
But we're not going back.
Called it.
I believe that the American people know we all
though.
have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward.
What is that,
and
though?
a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes,
by what has
the
been.
ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families,
opportunity
in what we
economy is
can
a good
do
focus
around
group
protecting
word.
seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living.
How though?
I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people.
Yikes.
And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them
is, are you for
okay?
a war?
Did you smoke pot?
And that's the kind of president we need right now.
Because if
someone who cares about
to prison.
You
Only
and is
I
not
can do
putting
that.
themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Oh, I thought she was going to say
Vice
build
President
back better.
Harris, thank you. President Trump.
That's good. Classic
So
debate
she just
closing right
started
there.
by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it?
Nice.
She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader.
Evan.
We don't have any
Could've been a
idea
better
what's
list.
going on.
I was thinking
we
that
have
too.
wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars
we
going
got
on
one.
with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
They're eating our
President
cats.
Trump, thank you. And that
Could've
is
just said-
our
could've ended with
ABC
that. They're
presidential
eating our
debate
cats.
from here
Just
in
a nice
Philadelphia
memeable
at the National
moment.
Hey,
Constitution
don't forget
Center.
to
I'm
like,
Lindsay Davis.
subscribe.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching.
Join
here
us
in
as
the US and
members.
all
We're
over
not
the
going
world,
anywhere.
and
We're going
from
to talk a
all
little
of us
bit
here at
afterwards,
ABC
do
Yeah,
some
we'll-
more
yeah,
debate
we'll
analysis.
tack for a little bit.
They're closing up, but we're not gonna because we got things to talk about. And who wants to see what these ones?
I got a whiskey to finish.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we have to
Here
keep
we go.
talking.
We're gonna swirl
Hey,
some whiskey.
well, cheers, everybody. We made it
We
through
made
that.
it. We survived.
Thank you for
Cheers,
being here
everyone.
with
Barely.
us for that harrowing experience.
I agree. There's a point there with Trump's final statement. There is like he was like going down a list. It was like he's counting on his fingers, and he named one thing, named another thing, and then he's like, and then he just moves on to the next thing. And it's just like, oh, that would have been such a good moment to just layer a bunch of stuff. And Evan was
Yeah.
right. Like that list should have been much longer.
For sure. He
But just like stumbled there.
Yeah, there could have been at least 5 to 6 things on there.
Yeah, like inflation. You could have talked about,
The border, the Ukraine war.
inflation. Did inflation come up at this debate?
Barely.
They talked about it, but they weren't asked directly about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was not a direct question about inflation. I think you're
I
right.
think that's right.
Well, they no.
Well, they asked
that's
like the economy generally, but yeah.
He did mention inflation
So did she.
being at like 21% or something.
That was them
earlier.
playing them coming in.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Want to make sure we're missing anything.
No. Let's. I sent you a tweet, Kyle, just so you can just to
Too many
summarize
things on me here.
the debate.
Where did you send me the tweet?
On Twitter.
Imagine that. Okay, so in the chat, I want to
Sometimes
know.
you send it to me on Discord.
I know.
Final-
I made that maybe sound bitchier than I meant it to be. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you
My
did
bad.
sound kind of
Sorry,
bitchy.
when I pull these things up, it kind of messes with the bit rate. Sometimes I've noticed.
Oh, shoot.
But
So-
here, let
We
me
could probably
go without leaking DMs.
do we kill the ABC stream?
That's probably fine. I mean, you can. if you want to.
I could, yeah.
Or just like leave full
Yeah,
screen so
let's-
we can
we
pull
could
it
leave
up?
that full screen. Oh,
You could pull up the tweet.
Pull up the tweet.
from Ethan, who was in the chat. Let me just make sure I'm not leaking anything.
Oh no! What is this?
Oh no!
I don't even know the reference here.
I'm not going to explain it. I don't know the reference either, Joe.
Oh no! Oh no! Okay, I get it now. It was a slow burn.
That
for
takes
me.
a while.
See, I'm not of this sort of persuasion of content, so I'm not really that up on the
What network?
content.
What network hosted the debate? again?
ABC.
Oh, it wasn't BBC.
Guys in the chat, do you think how do you think this is going to impact Trump? How do you think it's going to impact Kamala? Do you think this is going to swing polling? What are your thoughts coming out of this? I mean, I think generally speaking, the poll that we ran a little bit earlier suggested that Trump did not recover in the second half, and that Kamala was winning the debate as of the first half.
That's the thing is, I
58-41.
think that he
she
didn't.
won.
I don't think he recovered. I think he did better in the second half, but I wouldn't say it was like a recovery. I think she definitely won the debate. I think just from an objective standpoint. How much it sways people, that's another question.
Sure. Is the country so polarized that they've made up their mind as to who they're going to vote for, generally speaking?
Yeah, I agree with Cheryl in the chat that I feel like Trump needed to do more prep work.
He did seem a little unprepared, but are we just seeing the impact?
He was so off messaging.
Are we just seeing the impact of his age, though? Because, I mean, I don't think Trump's ever been accused of being on message, like hardly ever. So is he just not as sharp as he was 4 years ago or 8 years ago?
It could be some of that. One of the things
Well, definitely not 8 years ago.
Well, true, but I mean, just
he's definitely he's a different person than he was 8 years ago. That's obvious. If you go back and watch other performances, other speeches, he's definitely lower energy as a whole. And I don't think a lot of people will say that he's been lower energy since the shooting. He's been lower energy this whole campaign as a whole. Really.
A question: Does the audience impact the amount of energy that he's able to derive? Because he's very high energy at rallies.
He does feed off.
So
of
is
the
that
audience a lot.
is that a device that is kind of being used against him in this way, or is that something that's not in his favor at very least?
Adam, I'd be curious to hear more of your thoughts. You're saying people are thinking on this on the wrong level. He dragged her into the mud. I'd be curious to hear more of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, at least one of the things that I'm worried about is that the swing voter demographic is going to see that, or probably more likely clips of that,
Sure,
and say he looks mad, she looks calm and poised.
Right.
The
optics were very much in her favor.
Right, in that sense that they were very much against Biden's favor in the last debate, where he's like staring off into the void. Right
now, Trump is sort of in the old white guy archetype in this dichotomy.
Potentially.
Something Adam continued the thoughts there. Y'all are out to lunch. It ain't about articulating and ideas. It's about hypnotizing. I tend to be, and you know me, I tend to be very in agreement with you on that type of stuff. I didn't feel like he was. I don't think the hypnotization aspect was that strong.
What you're trying to do is hypnotize someone into believing that you would be a good president, right? And he didn't. I'm not sure that he came across that way that would let someone feel confident.
Yeah, I feel like he didn't do that at all.
Yeah, because one of the things that I think, and Jared in the chat here is that saying that this was brutal for Trump. Also, Kamala was far more impressive than I thought she'd be. And I think that's going to be a lot of people's takeaways from this debate. And that was one of the big concerns with how much prep she put into it versus Trump, is that I think that's in a lot of people's minds, is that she's not ready to be the higher office person, but then she looks pretty good in the her speeches that she gives, and also the in this she seemed very prepared and very good. And it seems like, maybe she is ready to be president. And it gives that impression.
Right.
Okay, so really quick, Shu kind of echoed that.
We got
sentiment.
Haitian cats, says
Super Shu echoed that sentiment, saying he didn't think Trump did horrible, but Kamala was well above expectations.
That's my thought too.
Because she's
very
been
much like to confirm what Post from the Underground just said.
Yeah, we'll get there. All right, I'm getting there. Just want to
all of a sudden the
finish
chat's
this.
rolling.
I agree with the fact that because Kamala has been framed as not being a good speaker, this was a well above expectation performance for her, and that's going to play really well for her. But yeah, getting to Ethan's comment here, Post from the Underground. Harris campaign just said they're up for a second debate in October, sign that they're happy with tonight. I think that's
did they just announce
likely.
that?
That's interesting.
I think it's pretty likely.
I was just looking online for it.
He also says, quote, that's what they saw tonight and what they should see at a second debate in October. Vice President Harris is ready for a second debate. Is Donald Trump?
Interesting. Because originally the plan was 2 debates. I remember that being the plan, but then someone told me, or I heard that the second debate wasn't happening anymore or something.
Yeah, that's what I was under.
I remember it was supposed to be presidential debate, then VP debate, then another presidential debate. But then it sounded like the second presidential wasn't going to happen anymore. So I'm curious if
I really hope if
or maybe just everyone's forgotten
that it's Fox,
know.
because that was I just felt like he was fighting the
Kamala camp wouldn't accept
exactly.
Fox.
I think the way that I think another lens here to think about is the way the debate happened. What I think is the average center right person, maybe lean right swing voter, in this election probably saw that and saw how cute it was for Kamala. Skewed it was. That the debate questions, the way they're framed, I don't think we're the only ones who would notice that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Man.
And I wonder, okay, so the problem is Trump can't really talk about it, because if he does, it looks like he's whining about how it was done. You can't really do that.
It's arguing about the refs.
But that's it. And specifically when you have opportunities to advance the ball and you miss them.
Right.
That's the annoying thing oftentimes is it's like, like they put him in this trap. They're like, Trump just whines about the past all the time, and then it's also, here's all these questions about the past.
Yeah, right.
And then they're queuing him up to whine about it, and then they complain about him whining about it all the time, and then they try to create this narrative of, and this is where the "we're not going back" narrative comes from. Like, this is why it was focus group, is because that's what they're trying to pin it on, is everybody that's kind of the low information voters that haven't looked into all these things that he's complaining about. He gets stuck having to continue complaining about them, and then there's like, no, that's all nonsense. We're not going back. We're not going back to the divisiveness that Trump's doing. All he does is whine and divide people, right? That's the play that they're going through.
Patrick Fleming comes into the chat saying Trump did not prep for this debate, but he has arrived by the seat of his pants type. Kamala had coaching and knew what was coming. What will she do if she needs to make decisions in the now? I mean, I think that's a great question. I think she'll do probably largely what Biden has done, which is rely heavily on the people around him and go to the beach. Just put his administration in charge and take off for vacation. And Matt Ryan with a similar comment. Trump was unprepared, and I don't think he took this seriously, missed a huge opportunity. I agree with that. I think he came in expecting a similar environment to what he experienced with Joe Biden. I think that this plays to an interesting problem that Trump has, which is maybe underestimating his opponent in this case.
Yeah,
in both
I do
cases,
feel like there was an underestimation that was happening.
A lot of talk early about how poorly, how excited he was that she was going to be the candidate, right? What do you think, Bennett?
I am surprised because with them bringing on Tulsi, like I have seen Tulsi say that they should not take her lightly, like talking about Kamala in a debate. So I'm pretty surprised. I am and I'm not. Like I'm surprised by his lack of feeling prepared, but I'm not surprised by his getting distracted and being taken off message. But as you said, he's never really on message. So I don't know. I'm having like a mental roller coaster.
Well, yeah,
I'm freaking out, man.
And the moderator point I was making before is that as a center right, as a Republican, the moderator's not going to be on their side. You know that this is the thing you're going to face. So therefore, you must prep even more so than if you're getting softball questions.
Well, and
it's easy to look qualified and presidential when you literally have layups being thrown at you.
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's the ease that she has in this moment. But then it's also, they need to be prepared for, the Trump camp needs to be prepared for, okay, they're going to try to hit you on these questions like J6 or whatever, name the kind of everybody
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville, whatever. You need to be able to try to block and pivot that into an attack on her for how incompetent she is, or like the general Biden administration, try to tie her to the Biden administration as many ways as possible, but also like, I'm going to weaponize, you're weaponizing right now with all these BS things, and then name those and be specific. Like, I think there's some like precision. One of the things that was frustrating with me with Trump is his lack of precision. And this isn't me being like super policy wonky or anything like that. His lack of precision, I think, demonstrated a bit of a incompetence to some people's eyes. I think it's going to demonstrate that, where it's like, it gave me this idea that we're like, I agree, he was right about a lot of those things, but it gave me this sense, if I was somebody that didn't know the stuff, it would be like he's just flailing, like which is a sign of distress.
And it was made even more clear when he said, "I don't have a plan for replacing Obamacare. I have concepts," right? Like. And you pointed it out in the moment, Dave. That's a terrible thing to say. You have to, even if you don't have a plan, say you have a freaking plan.
Yeah.
It honestly, it made me think of, have you guys ever seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
A
long time ago. I have 12% of a plan.
Well, and Adam, there is another media war that is going on right now, and I think that there's an important thing about the memetic side of things right now is because he's saying you guys stare at cat memes all day and you're blackpilling, which I think that there's a. Even though
don't know what my day is.
she might have won this battle, there is a larger war that's going on, and I think Trump is winning the larger war when it comes to the media landscape, especially with new media, and a lot of that is the meme side of things.
Right. I mean, the big question.
I think she won this battle, though.
True. I mean, you are reaching a large swath of Americans with a televised debate for sure, especially when it's multicast to the internet, and obviously we're streaming it. Lots of people are seeing it. Trump is on the ground doing huge rallies. He's getting a lot of people in the door, and he's getting to talk to them in long form. He's going on podcasts. He's really embracing the alternative media culture. Will that be enough to carry him through a poor debate performance? I guess time will tell. Lee Deming bringing a very salient point, I think. just reflect for a moment on how low our expectations are for these two. Kamala Harris exceeded these low expectations barely. This is true.
Yeah.
She was a better speaker than we expected, and that's enough to win a debate in 2024.
But I think overall she came off as what I would consider a good candidate debate performance, right?
Yeah.
And like another point on your specificity point, when she came across as specific, it's like a salesman who knows their product.
Yeah.
Right. And if you talk in generalities, it seems like you're being a scam artist, right? And so that's in sales the same sort of thing in politics. You have to have specificity. You have to be able to tell the story of the political lesson you're trying to demonstrate. And Trump just didn't have that in him tonight, because sometimes he's really good at that. Sometimes he's really good at those kind of reference, bringing those up. The last time he was interviewed, I don't remember which one that we were talking about, but I said Trump did a really good explanation of the Ukraine war and why of NATO expansion. I don't remember which one that was.
Yeah.
But he didn't do it here. He failed at it here.
Yeah.
One, Kendall is mentioning there was no cackling from Kamala tonight. That's a big deal, since normally she can't go 2 sentences without it. I think that's a lot of the prep was in that.
Oh, for sure.
Like, don't laugh.
That's why, dude, I said the thing about the numbing agent in her lip during that interview. There was something weird about her mouth. Like, I really think they gave her something to not laugh.
There's bring the energy down slightly. Sometimes you have this nervous, neurotic energy about you, Kamala.
I expected it so much. If I actually had a bingo card for this debate, that would have been in the center of it.
Oh yeah, same.
And
It'd be right next to the free space.
Oh, yeah. That would have been the free space.
Yeah, true. It'd just be a second free space. Then Ethan from Post from Underground, he's saying that Trump on Truth Social just said, "I thought that was my best debate ever, especially since it was 3-on-1." Those are all capitalized.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
But they could continue to play. There is an angle that Trump can use, kind of showcasing the media's out to get me as well as them, and they're colluding together. And that showcases where, if you watch the debate, it was 3-on-1. I think that's very evident that it was 3-on-1. And so he's probably going to play that. There becomes the whiny vibe that happens, you know.
Oh, and the question is, who does that play to? Does it play to his base, who is already going to vote for him? Does it play to the middle? I don't think it plays as well to the middle.
Well, it depends on if it was obvious to them or not, and I'm not sure I know that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not sure that
I don't think it is.
It was obvious that those layups were layups. To me, it was obvious, but I don't
well, again, we're a little closer to this subject than most people, as are our listeners. Which,
I'm the most recent normie, so for me, I feel like it's not as obvious. I mean, now I do, but just thinking how I would have been a year ago.
That's kind of what I mean by the preciseness thing. Is there's just so many things that Trump, I think he was correct on, but it's like he needed to go one layer further to be able to bring it home to really nail Kamala on something. And it's just because if you're not steeped in it, you don't know what he's referencing in a lot of his points that he was making.
Yeah, I go back to the Ukraine thing specifically, because during that answer we were all excited because he was just he was right around it.
Yes.
But he never really hit it to make the specific point that would have kind of brought it home.
He hit the target. He didn't hit the bullseye.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That's a good word.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like he got some points around the edge, and it wasn't enough for, I think, a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yep. So we also have 2 issues that we kind of queued up to talk about at some point, which was abortion and then the crime rate thing.
Yeah. My question was, why wouldn't he have just given a yes or no answer to, if there was a national abortion ban, would he veto it if it came to his desk?
Right. So the reason why is that his base, he needs to keep his base while cultivating the middle. And so by answering that, he loses base support. And base energy is very important to the results of the election.
Turnout.
Fair.
And right now there is a problem with the hardcore right-wing conservative internet culture, the people that are super pro-life. There is a pullback of people actually talking about holding back their vote from Trump unless he becomes stronger on the pro-life side. So, but he's also one of the biggest attack points that the left uses on him all the time is that he's going to sign an abortion ban. He overturned Roe v. Wade, all this stuff, you know? So he's stuck in this weird trying to find a middle ground, and the people on the edges aren't going to like that, right?
Yeah. I also think that the Trump campaign didn't do a great job of identifying enough attack vectors against Kamala.
Yes.
he felt like he was on the defensive all the time, of course, because she was attacking him constantly, but he didn't have enough points to get back to her. It was like tying her to Joe Biden, tying her to the border, tying her to a bad economy. That was basically it.
Right.
I mean, yeah, he had a couple of jabs on the Afghanistan withdrawal, a little bit on being weak on foreign policy, but again, without the specificity there, it was not enough to really like put her on her toes. And she was really good at just returning to the party line, returning to the script, and staying on message. And that's obviously not something that Trump is good at. So I think that looked very bad for him, unfortunately.
Meso, I agree here. Like, why is he not using the warmonger backing Kamala as an attack vector? It seems so obvious to me too. I agree.
Dick Cheney.
Yeah,
his foreign policy
miss.
in the Middle East is how Trump became the most popular candidate in the Republican Party, because he was the one who broke the embargo on being conservative and yet criticizing the GWAT.
Right.
So, like, how could he not take advantage of that opportunity?
It felt like a gift that was presented to him
Oh, God.
2 days ago.
Yeah,
you have this gift before the debate.
Well, she said it. She said it on the debate.
Yeah, she even brought it up at the debate, which I was so surprised by.
Yeah, he that was a miss.
Because like that's one of those things where they're trying to paint it as even Dick Cheney can't get behind Trump because Trump's just so much more evil than that.
Yeah.
And like they can spin that so well of like they're not welcome in our party, you know, and they're everything that the left was against. They're the reason why a Kennedy is endorsing me, right? Like
Fair. Yeah, he should have played that back in their face for
if
sure.
Thanos endorses you, you don't go like, "Yay, I got Thanos on my side." You know what I mean? Like, that's the bad guy. He's the worst.
Tell me you're a bad guy without telling me you're a bad guy.
Doctor Doom is on your side.
What do you guys think they're saying here? Do we have any guesses just how bad Trump did?
Yeah, maybe pull it up. I wouldn't do it. It looks like they're just going to commercial.
No, we're
break.
supposed to mime over the voice. It's like, he's a racist. And then he's like, I think he's a bigot.
I can't believe he called her only an Indian.
I think it's probably more building up Kamala than trying to tear down Trump, honestly.
That's probably true. Yeah, put the attention on what you want. Right?
Yeah. It's one of those things where like Trump did all right, but it wasn't what I was kind of hoping for. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, obviously, I didn't expect this, but there weren't any of the nods that I might hope for as a libertarian towards the things that he's been using to court, sort of the libertarian voters or the independent voters. I mean, obviously, Emily brought up the fact that he could be talking about Make America Healthy Again, the RFK endorsement, all the stuff about the children and the future. Right. Kamala was really good at focusing on this like bright, optimistic future, very Obama-esque. And Trump was mired in attack, and he needed to get into that positivity space.
Well, he was mired in defense.
True.
Right? He didn't have a positive vision for the future, which is always the problem.
Right.
Make America Great Again. As much as it's backward looking with the again, it's about the future. It's Make America. It's conducting America today.
Right.
And like Lee did make a great point. On the abortion issue, Trump did a great job explaining how he helped get it back to the states to decide. Somehow it didn't land. I think it didn't land because he just didn't communicate it clearly. It just wasn't there in terms of why it's a good thing that it reduces the temperature of what tears the country apart. Like, he couldn't explain why that is. He just said it was. And without that explanation, it's harder to persuade people who might not, be with you.
There's an element with this, and I've always wanted to kind of talk about this on the podcast on like a normal episode too, on the abortion issue where, in my opinion, putting it to the states is the correct constitutional approach that you should be taking.
Yes.
Like that is like the correct, but there's also this issue here where most Americans don't even know what the 10th Amendment is. Right, to me, it's one of the most important amendments. It's
lose count after 4.
It's like the first, the second, the fourth, and the 10th are probably the most important amendments.
Exactly.
But and he explains it all the time. But to me, it's almost like it's such a policy wonky, legalistic thing to talk about. Where how effective is that in the broader conversation about the abortion topic when you're running for office?
What he should do is he should tie it to the American mythos. What he should be saying is our founders were so wise. They were so wise that they created this thing called the 10th Amendment that said the federal government has limited powers to decide what you can do with your life. And therefore, they made this thing saying we'd kick it to the states, and then your states can decide these specific questions according to the voters' will. And because I have such allegiance to the Constitution, to the founders, I have instituted the 10th Amendment when it comes to abortion. By doing, you know what I mean? Like, you don't do it by explaining why it's so great in an individual state or why it's best for your policy point of view on abortion narrowly. You do it by appealing to the American mythos.
Because the thing is, I think where most Americans are right now when it comes to abortion is there's kind of three camps. There's the ones that it's not really an issue for them. And then there's like the super pro-life and then the super pro-choice. And to me, it's like all the people that you're appealing to with the abortion issue on either side of that, like the people in the middle don't really care that much. But then the people on the edges, all they want is a federal solution. Right. So like talking about the states' rights stuff, how effective is it really in the broader conversation? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though to me, that's the proper choice.
No, well,
right?
but that's what happens. So he has to defend it. So you have to defend it the best way you can, which to me is an appeal to the founders.
For sure.
We got another David for governor in the chat.
Kyle, I need you to check your DMs on Discord.
Oh, God. You guys are messaging me on Twitter. You're messaging me on Discord. I'm trying to watch the chat.
We got a hot meme coming in.
I think it is funny, Adam on here. No offense, but pandering to libertarians on the national stage is probably a risky endeavor.
Yeah, for sure.
Completely true.
What do you mean there, though, Adam? It's already been asked.
So I think it was in reference to my comment that there wasn't a lot from Trump regarding his appeal to like the independents and libertarians. I lump in the independents because of the RFK endorsement and this gaping hole in his like positivity message, so much of which could revolve around the chronic disease epidemic, like the food systems, like the control of pharma. I mean, obviously, maybe Trump won't go there, but but here we have this sweet meme from Matt, the ABC moderator, and Kamala tag teaming, all Trump in the corner, all bronzed up and oiled.
That's pretty good.
Oh, I see what you mean. But I mean, on the other side of that, you do need to pander to libertarians sufficiently enough to not get such a large libertarian vote in any given state that it ruins your chances for Senate.
Precisely, and to
have a aligned Senate. The margins on president can be that close in places like Georgia. It could be that close, maybe Arizona.
And
I mean,
all that could mean is just having a better answer on Ukraine, on NATO expansionism, on, I mean, any number of issues.
Free Ross. If he just would have brought up Free Ross in the
just
middle of
say those two words.
Totally,
First of all, Free Ross. But to your question, like libertarians,
just slip it into it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, but the lack of strategy to say I need to do something for the libertarians. I need to do something I need to emphasize RFK. Maybe it is that he doesn't have notes to actually like list out those strategies or something like that, but he just didn't have it in
I
him.
really thought that would have hurt her more than him, honestly.
Which?
But what?
Not having notes.
Oh.
I expected that to hurt her more than it did him.
She's been in the lab for a week.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
So
she's been doing nothing but debate prep.
Just like Neo,
for a
just
week.
plugging it in, just getting
She's
Barack
supposed
Obama
to
videos.
be. She's supposed to be the vice president right now, but she spent an entire week in the lab.
They just hypnotized
we don't
her.
even have a real president anyway.
They hypnotized her and
Who's
they put her in
president?
front of Obama speeches for like 72 straight hours.
I think Trump needed to hit that type of stuff more because I feel like there's an uneasiness in the country right now about the like, who is president right now? Like that type of vibe. And I feel like he should have just kind of raised that question a few times.
Well, he did do that.
Yeah.
He did.
Just once, though.
Just once. Like
But
I feel like it
wasn't
needed
as
to
clear.
be hit more.
And that's actually a great bridge point. What you probably say is you say, who is president right now? He's at the beach. She's spending all week doing debate prep and campaigning. Who's president right now? I'm not running against you. I'm not running against Joe Biden. I'm running against a machine,
Against
a
the deep
system.
state, yeah.
You know, I'm running against this thing, and like they'll scoff and say, "Oh, the deep state," but that will appeal to people, right? Because it is an open question.
I kind of
Kendall, is that true? Did Taylor Swift just give her endorsement?
I do have a thing to kind of
Great.
Jesus
to
Christ.
go off.
Oh my God, it's over. It's over. What's the prediction markets?
I think that could have been a good time for him to bring up the fact that the FBI did, in fact, kind of go at like Facebook and block these stories. Like, I feel like that was kind of a miss to not bring that up, especially when they brought up the question of him not really accepting the 2020 results. Like you could say that I'm not running against a candidate, I'm running against this machine. Even Mark Zuckerberg is now coming out and admitting it. Like, I feel like that was another missed point.
Totally.
Yeah.
Those types of things, I think, are things that need to be brought up, and just a lot of people in the American consciousness just don't have it there, and the people that he needs to sway over, the ones that that need to kind of hear that stuff.
Right.
So Taylor Swift says, quote, I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the 2024 presidential election. Ellipses, skipping on. I've done my research and I've made my choice. Your research is all yours to do, and the choice is yours to make. Signed, Taylor Swift, childless cat lady.
Well, apparently she doesn't care about cats in Springfield, Ohio.
It's a very long.
I hope
What if a Haitian gets to her cats?
Well,
I mean, I can't
they
say.
would have to fly because she's always on a private jet.
Oh, well, I can't say that's a surprise to anyone.
Her cats are behind gated communities.
That's true. Her
Yeah.
cats have private security.
Bennett,
Her
you need
cats
to
have
count
guns.
Bennett, you need to count how many letters are in this post so that you can find out what the reference is.
Oh,
to the
yeah. See if
song.
it's like a divisible by 13.
Yeah, exactly.
Travis Kelce conspiracies. Dave Moran in the chat. What's up, Dave? If anybody likes the music that we have as the intro to our show, Dave Moran is the genius behind that. He's doing some cool work for us right now that we're going to reveal very soon. Dave Moran, appreciate you very much. Killer musician and producer out of Nashville.
Oh, that's the guy you've been working with on,
That's right.
on this little project.
He's the man, the myth.
scenes.
The man, the myth.
Another thing I
Thanks,
thought
Dave.
Trump did pretty poorly on was when they brought up Israel. Like, he was all over the map on that one.
Yeah.
Like saying how Kamala hates the Jews, also hates the Arabs. I was like, I don't know. That one kind of felt
There's
like
not a lot of win there, right? Because he can't really come in as the peace candidate on that, and then he can't really. What he should have done, and this is not my values or what I think is the right answer here, but if I was his campaign staff, I would have said, "You didn't bring up the Abrahamic peace accords." Like,
I
how
thought
did
that's
you
for
not?
sure where he was going to go.
He didn't go there. He didn't say
I'm
it.
surprised
I
he
was
didn't
waiting
bring it
for
up.
him to say it. It's policy actually the wrong answer, but it's the right answer in terms of elections.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's
you're
very
like,
interesting.
I was
almost-
creating peace in the Middle East, and you guys screwed it up. Even
Yeah,
though
exactly.
the Abraham Accords actually is what
That's the
probably
clear
provoked-
talking point to
Yes,
use.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I almost
And she
brought it
can't
up in the
respond,
moment too. I was like, oh, he's about to mention the Abraham Accords because
Yeah.
that was just like such an obvious path. And I wonder if there's a reason why he didn't. I mean, or do you think he just spaced it? Anybody?
I think he
it's
probably
just
spaced
him.
it.
I think
he
it's just
spaced
him.
it.
Yeah. He's just an old guy, man.
He's just
And he
not on-
spaced
I
it.
think there's a
Not
lot of
at any
areas where he
point.
could have claimed
Also,
victories on things.
to be fair, we are Monday morning quarterbacking him, right? We're like looking at
I know,
a very
but
hard
I think
thing to do.
I do
and
feel
we're-
like we were kind of saying it live too. Like I remember as soon as that question came up, I was like, "Oh, he's going to be bad on this because he has been really bad on Israel."
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, sure.
He's been like criticizing people for criticizing Israel, which is against his whole free speech thing, and it's just like it's makes you want to pull your hair out, which is why mine's all gone.
Although I think one of the areas where he has been good rhetorically on it is just like ending the killing that's going on.
I agree.
Which is he's just kind of taking the same stance as Ukraine in a sense, where he's not like fully taking sides on everything. He kind of dances in that territory, but it's also where Kamala is, where she's sitting at this point where she's trying to not take sides in anything.
Which I do think
which
she
makes
has
people feel
answered
off,
that
right?
much better, though. Like, she's been answering that question on Israel a lot better than he has.
Has she? I'm not so sure. I'm not
Well,
sure if that's
she was
the truth
very
with
clear.
her base, like her base that's like super pro-Palestine, like super
Well,
pro-Palestine.
hold on. So her
young base is
her young base who doesn't vote that
not
much.
Dick Cheney, not that base.
Yeah, right. I'm sure her money base is very pro-Israel, and
well, yeah, they run Hollywood.
It actually, there was a poll came out today that suggested that Arab Americans are overwhelmingly going to the Green Party, Jill Stein, and have lost. And Jill Stein now outpolls Kamala Harris with it, so they are losing votes. But that's not a big population. You win far more by going after white middle class moms who are pro-Israel than you do
and pro Taylor Swift.
The Arab population.
There is a point here too from Jared. The Vance Walz debate is where you'll hear everything Trump should have said. And that will be one of those things is like, I'm actually very excited for the Vance Walz debate.
That's a good take.
I think it's going to be super
That's a
interesting.
I forgot
take,
that was
Jared.
even happening.
I think it's next, when is it?
I don't know.
I don't know the
we
debate.
will find out, and we will surely be streaming it for you.
probably,
So
yeah.
please do
Joe,
join
let's
us.
just leave everything here.
We're leaving it here.
Is this our new studio?
I guess. I mean, it's really a short commute for me. So
in this
I mean,
bunker that's
in this really
undisclosed.
remote bunker that I don't know where this is.
And Vance is good at that type of stuff too. I was actually just listening to his interview this morning with All In at the All In Summit. And Vance is good when he gets thrown some hostile questions. He's good in long form formats. He's good in those. I'm not sure about debates. I've never seen him debate, but I have a hunch he's going to be good. I don't know where Walz is pretty high energy character too. So I imagine it being a high energy debate, really.
I do too. And I think that I mean, yes,
Saw the
absolutely.
horse semen.
Wow. We took it there. Fortunately, all the children have gone to bed by this point, right?
Hopefully.
No, I mean, I think that will be a really interesting debate. And I do wonder what the dynamic is going to be between J.D. Vance, a veteran, and Tim Walz with the stolen valor issue. That's going to be a spicy exchange if I had to guess. So I'll certainly be interested to hear.
Kendall's asking a good question that might be a broader podcast question too, is what happens to the political realignment, in quotes, that we've all been talking, and we've been talking about with Kendall quite a bit too. If Trump loses to Kamala, like what happens to this political realignment that happens? I think a lot of people have always been thinking like, oh, Trump's going to win this thing.
Sure.
But it's not really a shoo-in.
No.
And what happens to this tent that's been forming if he loses?
A blender.
A blender.
The entire Republican Party goes into a blender.
I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
Now,
I think
explain what you mean by that.
Ideological civil war.
Yeah. It's going to be a journey through the desert, where there's going to be
for 40 years.
Well, hopefully not again.
Possibly.
The Republicans did that once. It's called the post FDR era, right? Where reformulation took a very, very long time for the Republicans, and they didn't really get that together till Reagan. I would suggest that the next step will be a civil war that then tosses all of these things into a new formulation. Now, while right now MAGA and America First is a very dominant ideology that is like tied people together, all those bonds are loose, and there's going to be a whole new set of ideological factions. And I bet you'll see neocons move back.
Come
to the
back.
Right. Yep.
Dick Cheney returns.
Well,
the Emperor Strikes Back.
Which I think is what they were trying to do with Nikki Haley. I think
Oh, for sure.
1,000%.
Right.
they were trying to find a way of getting that camp in and stealing the energy back in some way, and it's just everybody kind of saw through Nikki Haley, and I think the internet is a useful thing for that. But
And Vivek was just absolutely torching her.
and Vivek understands the game theory on this type of stuff way more than I think a lot of these political strategists do.
And you know what's interesting is I didn't hear any Vivek in Trump tonight. And I think we've all kind of assumed he's a close part of the campaign in some way, although he's been pretty quiet on the public Trump campaign front recently.
It was on
He's been hitting a lot of the
this
conferences
last
and stuff
week.
like that.
True.
Yeah.
So, but I'm just wondering, to what degree is he influencing this campaign, and if not, should he be more?
Yeah, I mean,
I think he needs to be more.
I don't think that's his choice, though.
Yeah, it's not. But I think it's unlikely that we would see that. We didn't see just because Trump didn't really even, to me, didn't even really. I mean, he sounded like Trump, but he didn't really have the zingers. He didn't really have the moments, like the things that really, where he was best in 2016 and best in the last debate, where he didn't do as well in 2020. He didn't have those moments this time around. At least the couple that did happen, like him stealing her
I'm speaking moment.
Moment,
that was funny.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there wasn't much more to it.
In the VP debate,
Well, we got excited
I'm waiting
about
for
the cats.
I'm waiting for the childless cat lady question in the VP debate.
Yep.
You just know that's going to be thrown at
for sure.
Vance.
Well, and actually to that point,
And then he should respond, only Taylor Swift. Is how he should respond. Because then it's like a replay of Donald Trump saying, Rosie O'Donnell.
Only Taylor Swift.
Maso in the chat says, I don't think a lot of people change their minds based on VP debates. I would be interested to see the numbers on that.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
it's not as
they're
consequential.
more spectacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think
something
this
about the
is
spectacle,
a
yeah.
will be a big moment for Vance, especially, I guess, regardless of what happens. If Trump
Thanks, Jimmy.
wins or
Appreciate
loses.
you hanging out. We'll see you in the next one.
See you, Jimmy.
If Trump wins or loses, this is a big moment for Vance because he then could be the next guy up. I think he'll also be competing with RFK and Vivek, but this is kind of a big moment for Vance.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I think if Vance does well, it'll do well for what Lava Lamp is asking about, is if Trump wins, what happens to the Republican Party, right? If Trump wins, that enshrines the America First MAGA kind of principles, like the loose outline that is that worldview, into Reagan-like status, right? Where it's going to be harder to criticize that, and you'll gain points by going along with those base and appealing to those ideas and those broad concepts. So if Vance does well, he'll be seen as the inheritor to that and will be better set up for future leadership within the right. if he does poorly and Waltz stomps him or something like that, which is hard to imagine, but possible always, I guess, because I just don't know enough about Vance to say whether or not he's a good debater. Then it'll be it'll diminish his ability to do that. And that's really the consequence of the VP debate, in my mind.
Yeah, it's partly the interesting thing about Trump right now in this moment is we're seeing the young talent rise up right now, and that's kind of what Vance is. That's what Vivek is, and we're starting to see there's bubblings of this new generations that are coming, and that's part of why I think the VP debate will be useful. And it might not even, it's much more of a long-term thing if we can look back and show this is what Vance had, right?
And if he runs for re-election, if he runs for presidency, you'll get clips out of it that you can use for making his appeal to the next president.
Well, and there's just this broader question of this big tent going forward, how long lasting is that tent? And because right now, this tent that is on the right, quote unquote, whatever we want to call it, it's still very much formulated around the cult of personality that is Trump. And there is a lot of different ideologies that exist within this. So when he goes, does the tent go with it? Or is there some sort of ideological formation that can be a lasting impact over a long period of time right now? Because the left, they just have the cult of institutions. They're just stuck with, they're worshiping the machine, they're worshiping the shadow government. These people are just kind of faces, and they're kind of comfortable with that. If you talk with general politically informed Democrats, they're cool with that. That's where they're at. They're like, yeah, no, we're voting for the people behind them. So it doesn't matter when you ask them, where is Biden? Who is president? It was like, no, it's the people behind them. That's where we're at, right? But right now, we're still very much in the Trump moment. And when the Trump moment ends, when he's done running, he's dies, whatever happens, right? Because he is old too. So he's only going to be politically active
and
for so many years.
And has also been shot at.
He has been shot at, but his political activity is only going to last so much longer. There's no more than a decade in this left, even post-presidency, et cetera.
So my question
what happens
is
now.
So yeah, exactly. So my question is, what does that do to the inheritors of that? What does that do to their chances of inheriting if he doesn't win this election? Right? It becomes substantially more difficult.
That's why it's a blender, right? A whole new realignment. The MAGA movement is going to be suppressed by your institutional actors in the Senate, like Mitch McConnell and other folks who are influential in those circles, right? They're going to immediately turn around and be like, and you'll see all the neocons flip around to the right again and start trying to be.
They're going to try to. There's going to be a lot of fake America Firsters coming in and trying to, in the same way this happened with the Tea Party, where you have kind of a lot of fake people that rode that wave during the Tea Party, but then they essentially became neocons, were already neocons. They became entrenched in the system. There's some holdouts that still exist, the Rand Pauls of the world and stuff like that. But a lot of those people just became entrenched swamp creatures in there, or were already entrenched swamp creatures who were under the guise, right? So there's going to be this underground intelligence battle that kind of exists. And I don't mean intelligence like the CIA. It's going to be covert type of factions fighting over for whatever this blob is that Trump has captured over all these years.
Yeah. Right. Great point, and I think a fine place to end. You guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you have not yet, please hit the like button. It will help our analytics going forward. Please subscribe as well. We will be doing this again for the vice presidential debate and for the next presidential debate if there is another one. And, of course, we have our weekly news show. If you haven't checked that out, we encourage you to do so. You guys have been fantastic.
Which I feel like we should mention this is kind of our show this week.
This is our show this week. Thank you, Bennett.
We got a bunch of scheduling issues that are going on, so this will be our show. And for the people that are just Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff, we're going to try to get the VOD up on there so people can see this as well.
Exactly.
For the people that aren't normally YouTube viewers and things like that.
And we will be back with our regular show next week. Bennett, thank you for pushing all the buttons. Thank you guys for bearing with our technical difficulties in this new impromptu studio. David Rand, Kyle Mack, I'm Joe Sheehan. We are Human Reaction. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
See ya.
Peace.
Don't say anything.
Don't say anything.